Anyways, happy Friday. Decided to message Jacob a few days ago asking if he wanted to review the set because I'm kind of interested. It's like, is this set bigger than normal or is this 403 fake? I guess it might be fake.
That 403 sounds fake. The set
Yeah.
doesn't seem that much bigger than normal. I don't know if...
Okay. But yeah, anyways, the theme of the set is obviously like, what's the best way of putting it? 80s movie horror films?
Yeah, they call it 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, it's
I
kind
was
of.
trying to read the lore, and it's kind of weird, because it's like the demon, I forget his name, the 9-drop, is like controlling this whole plane. And they seemingly consume fear. So they want people to be scared. But I almost got the vibe that the demon has seen glimpses of, like, they didn't say it was the human world, but like a plane where these things exist, and it's just like, that sure sounds like the demon has just watched the 70s and 80s and 90s movies.
So, actually, the explanation I was given was that this plane is like technologically advanced, but doesn't have very much magic. So what actually happens is like they have like TVs, they have cars, they have whatever. But the only way you can access magic is to make contracts with spirits or demons. And one of the main characters in a house stumbles across Vazagoth in her basement, but the Vazagoth like pretends he's a spirit, not a demon, and just makes a contract with her. And so, but Vazagoth only has power inside the house. But what happens is he like human sacrifice get brought to him, and he just keeps expanding the size of the house until it covers the entire plane.
Got it.
So it's very funny. It's a very like horror tropey like sort of thing to have happen. I think as well, is what I would say. So that's what's going on here. But yeah, Vasagoth is in the set. It's a 6 BBB 99 that has like ward, sacrifice 3 non-land permanents.
I believe it's also a commander card. Like
Oh,
there's a second Vazagoth that's
there's 2 Vasagoth?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, interesting. So yeah.
Unless maybe it's just another demon with a weird name, and I just decided they were the same. That's on me.
So interesting for me. I really dislike horror imagery. So like, what's going to happen to me is probably for the first few weeks, I'm gonna be like, ugh, I hate looking at this stuff. But by the time like the first few weeks pass, I'll be fine with it. But it is a little bit annoying. Like this is not. So you know how people say like, oh, just skip the set? I'm like, well, if you're a competitive Magic player, you can't really skip these sets, which is.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of interest in playing this limited format, for example, but because I'm kind of back into Magic a lot, it's like I'm gonna have to just know that these cards exist when I play Standard and Pioneer, especially particularly the next time I need to play Standard. I'm just gonna want to know that I read all these cards already.
Yep. So I didn't really have a set order. I didn't really have that many cards written down, but I guess we could just like look one by one.
Yeah, I reviewed it a bit myself, so I've got cards in me too.
But... So yeah, I guess we should talk about some of the like interesting mechanics real quick, which is survival. Obviously, is on this card. There's better survival cards than this one, but that's basically a mechanic that if the creature is tapped in your second main phase, something happens. They range in power level from like put a flying counter in this to put a permanent into play from your hand, which is obviously a lot more powerful.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think a lot of people are going to try to build that Omniscience deck, and they're going to be sorely disappointed because you rely on a 4-mana 4/3. But that's my suspicion.
I think it's a 3/4, but yeah, still. I mean, that mechanic is interesting. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about that card right away, because like. Obviously, in Constructed, there's things like Springleaf Drum, Vehicles, Saddle, Relic of Legends in the case of that one, because it is a legend.
What was it? Not Defiant Survivor. What was it called?
And there it is, Kona. Rescue Beastie.
There
on the left.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it is a 4/3. I'm mistaken.
Yeah, that's why I was less high on it, because like I think the cutoff for removal, especially there's a bunch of 3 damage spells in Standard essentially.
Yeah, it's like So I guess what comes to mind for me with something that might actually work with this card is Relic of Legends, because
Yep.
Relic of
Yeah.
Legends also gives you access to a lot of mana, and then the card you can put into play in Standard at least is Atraxa, rather than like Omniscience is just a whole other hoop, because I'm like Omniscience is like a 10 mana, just like completely unachievable card to cast. But like if your deck has Relic of Legends, I think Atraxa is like an achievable card to just cast.
Sure. Yeah.
So your deck could be at least. And then the other thing about this card is, people talk about the kind of fail case, like it dies, or maybe you don't draw Relic of Legends, but like it is also like there's like a upside on the other end where sometimes you can play this card and attack with it and put Atraxa into play. Like sometimes you just get it the easy way too. Like it doesn't always have to be the hard way.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes your opponent's tapped out, you remove their thing, attack, and then Yahtzee,
Yeah.
It is sort of unclear to me how many Atraxas you're looking to put in your deck, because you have to like naturally draw the Atraxa. Like that's kind of an issue, but we do know that the Inti Rona like relic thing can make a lot of mana, so maybe like it's just fine there.
Inti and Rona also make it more, I guess, like excusable to play 4 Atraxas in your deck.
Just start dumping some into the graveyard. And
there might be ways to reanimate them or things like that. I mean, there's also there could be overlap. The mana is kind of tough with I'm blanking on the name of it. It's 1 in triple blue.
Reenact the Crime.
Reenact the Crime. Yeah. And I've lost to Reenact the Crime on Arena Ladder just playing Standard plenty.
Well, I do remember the Chicago 100K where I made top 8. A Sultai Reenact the Crime deck actually did make top 8, but also lost to CFT Sock in top 4.
Right.
It was kind of interesting because I have never really thought that deck was great, but you can certainly lose to it. Like, its best draws do look like they're playing a different format, right?
Yeah, sometimes they can just turn 4 combo kill you, right, and mill your whole deck.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring up Survival as a mechanic, because I think a lot of people haven't seen all the mechanics. There's Eerie, which is like a combination of like Constellation, or when you fully unlock a room. We'll get more to that in a second. I guess there's a...
Yeah, it's more just tying together that it makes it feel like when you unlock a room that room enters the battlefield, even though it technically doesn't.
Wait, how come I can't get the art? All right, rotate the card. So,
thank you.
Yeah, this is one of the arts that I actually loathe so much, because it reminds me of all of the like horror movies I don't like, but that's neither here nor there. This is obviously is a reference to, I think, The Toymaker is the name of the movie. It's like some horrible 80s doll movie where the dolls attack.
I'm not gonna know many of the references in this set at all. I'm not into, like, luckily the card arts don't really bother me, but I'm not into the trope at all.
Yeah. So, okay, to clarify what happens with this style of card is you can cast it for either side. So this could be a 2-drop, which it says when you attack with 1 or more non-toys, create a 1/1 white artifact creature token, which is, I guess, okay, not like anything special. Then, if you pay 4 white, creatures you control have base power and toughness each equal to the number of creatures you control, which is a throwback to Beast of Burden from Urza's Destiny, which is probably a... Oh, Puppet Master's Enemy. Whatever. Like, I don't know any of the tropes, but... yeah, I don't know. Like, this is an example of a card that could conceivably see play. I'm not sure if I totally buy it, but there are a lot of token makers in Standard,
It doesn't seem very good to me. Yeah. A weird dynamic of Standard right now is that, like, Sunfall is so good, and there's just like other sweeper, like Lockdown is also very good. And then also for reference, I believe it's confirmed, basically like the mana cost, the devotion of said cards are only the unlocked rooms. So like, this card, if you play it on turn 2, does not survive temporary lockdown.
What happens if you play it, then unlock it?
Then I believe it adds to its mana. It's both.
So then if you had like Nykthos, it would see white.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, that's my understanding. It's like you only pretend the unlocked rooms are the ones in play.
Interesting. That's very good to know. I'm sure there'll be a ton of rules questions about that, in the next few weeks, which is, it's good that they're answering it. Oh, unrelated, did you see that they finally answered what happens with Nadu and Dress Down on Twitter?
Yeah, I didn't know that was... having played Nadu, I didn't even know that was a thing that was a question.
So were the judges just like hand waving at that Pro Tour? Like that is the question I now
Yeah, I mean,
ask.
Javier played dress down, so I assume that
Yeah.
interaction came up. But it's kind of weird because the dress down has to die for it to matter.
Yeah.
Like the dress down, like does it actually come up? Like the dress down has to come into play after the Nadu is triggered some amount of times, and then leave play. That just like never would have come up at the Pro Tour.
So it's just a hypothetical situation that never actually happens.
It's probably a Commander question because
Sure.
people in Commander are using old Legends cards to trigger Nadu and not Shuko.
Well, what is that? That single blue sorcery from Legends? What the?
There's a green one too.
Okay, yeah. Whatever. It like targets any number of things, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, enough ranting about that. What's the other mechanic? There's a lot of enchantments, of course.
Yeah, I mean, Ethereal Armor is not new to Pioneer, but it's a powerful card. It could see play in Standard.
Yeah. It is funny. I'm now reminded of the time where Ari, it was at Pro Tour RTR. He was just like, okay, this Ethereal Armor has come back 10th to me. What if I just took it? Then he saw 5 more in the draft and just put them all into his deck, which is obviously not something that like happens in most limited formats, but I think it will be better here, like frankly, because it's like an enchantment set as well.
Yeah, I assume it's going to be a great card in this set.
It's also an uncommon, but
yeah,
I think with how play boosters push things, it's like closer to common than uncommon previously. If that makes sense.
Yeah, if anything, it feels more like commons are closer to uncommon. Like everything's just like a little bit more rare.
There's exercise or exorcise.
Yeah,
I don't know.
On the treadmill.
Or get the ghost out of your house. I don't know. So a lot of people are like, "This is better destroy evil." I'm like, "Well, it's a sorcery, but it is like good."
Sorcery, I think, is gonna result in this card not really being a played card in any format. But
well, it does catch a lot of things, so I don't know. I can see it.
But there has to be artifacts to catch, right? Otherwise, Troy Evil is toughness though, or
it's toughness.
But still, there's not a lot of like creatures in that category, anyways, that are one and not the other.
Yeah, totally fair.
And I think the big thing right now in Standard, it's getting smaller, but like being able to pull Innkeeper's Talent at instant speed is much better.
Yeah, it's funny. I've played a bunch with the Gold Ducat Gruul deck, which doesn't have main deck Questing Druid for some reason. I still don't understand it, but it's like it's the Gruul Prowess deck with low curve.
I mean,
talents.
having played Questing Druid at the Pro Tour, I'm much lower on it than I was then.
Yeah,
so.
I could see that.
It's really bad with other cards that cost 2 or more mana.
Sure.
You need like a high density of 1 mana cards.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Anyways,
yeah, it does exile. That could come up. There could be things that need to get exiled. I mean, that's fair. I might, it's good to know that it exists. I just don't have high hopes for it as a sorcery. Yep.
Just it's a good thing to keep in mind if you need to answer some particular problem. Probably is the best way of putting it. All right. Let's look through these real quick. Oh, what does this card do? It looks like a limited card only.
Yeah, it's an uncommon.
Okay, we got a Leyline.
Yeah, that's one that caught my attention.
So what... Okay, I guess I'll read it for everyone. 2 white, Leyline of Hope. Has the Leyline text. If you would gain life, you gain that much life plus 1. As long as you have 7 life more than your starting life total, angels you control get +2 +2. Control. Yeah, creatures you control. Well, I said angels because obviously my brain was like thinking angels. Sorry about that. But so, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't think this can go in the Pioneer Angels deck because it's just the creature count is already low in that deck. But if you hypothetically had a deck that had all this life gain synergies, like 4 mana to give your creatures +2/+2 is like not a bad deal. And then obviously like it would be very synergistic if it was in your opening hand. It's like I don't think the deck for this card is going to exist, but if they wanted it to exist in Standard, I could imagine it sees play. But like I know what it just rotated the 1-drop that Amalia used to play that was like a Soul Warden, like that.
Well,
It's like
Lunarch
the
Veteran.
card
Yeah.
that needs to exist, and that
Yeah.
doesn't even exist in Standard anymore.
Lunarch Veteran is the card,
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah, I mean, like, we'll see. It is obviously good with Soul Wardens, and if you get to 27, then all of your creatures getting, like, much bigger is worth a lot. Because I think a lot of the creatures you play in a deck like that tend to be kind of small to begin with. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like if you built around it, you wouldn't be that sad paying 4 mana for the effect if you were at 27.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the goal is not to pay 4 mana for it, but like it wouldn't be just like a dead card that you'd had no time to play, because it would impact the board if you were doing the thing your deck wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. So I guess let's see, anything around here.
On the same line, Optimistic Scavenger is like a card that could easily see play in Standard. I don't know.
So that reminds me of what's the card from Neon Dynasty?
Yeah, there was
Jukai.
when you cast one.
Jukai Naturalist, I think, was the name of the card.
That was the 2-drop, I thought.
Oh,
There were the cost reducer.
Yeah, it's one of the two.
Yeah.
Okay, I could see that. If there's enough cheap enchantments, I think probably is what you want. Generous Visitor.
Yeah. Generous Visitor, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I don't know, like if with enchantment tokens potentially in the set, I don't know if there actually are. Well, I guess there's like roll tokens, you know, like because the other one I think was casting them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which
yeah,
you know,
okay,
like it was an enchantment itself, I think too. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, Generous Visitor wasn't. Jukai Naturalist was.
Yeah. Okay, and I mean, this card seems better than that card to me because, like, I don't think there's that many I don't know. Obviously, if your enchantment is counterspelled, you don't get the thing, but being able to work if there's anything with tokens, I mean, yeah, and like Calyx from Aftermath is still in Standard.
Is it? Why?
Yeah, it's March of the Machine Aftermath, right? So that's still a Standard legal set.
Calyx Guided by Fate?
Yeah.
Oh, so it is. That's very fun.
And that's like a very, you know, and we've got Ethereal Armor. Like you could totally have a green-white enchantments deck in Standard still.
Is there an actual like an Enchantress like that draws you cards?
In this set there's a blue one, so that's kind of tough.
Yeah, that's a little bit harder. Like
I think drawing cards is a little less appealing than just killing your opponent with Ethereal Armor. But
that's fair. Yeah. So good shout. I don't think I would have pegged that card as like being potentially good somewhere. I guess we'll talk about the first of 5 Overlords.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Much better than the rest to me.
Would I assume you mean the green one?
I mean the green one, yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone has pegged that one. I will say, the interesting thing about the Overlords is, and I think this has been pointed out by many people, is the synergy with Up the Beanstalk obviously makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And the reference to the green one again, which is only 3 mana to impend and gives you a token land that's every land type.
Mm-hmm.
Every Up the Beanstalk deck I think I've ever seen is a Leyline Binding deck.
Makes a lot of sense, so, right?
Like,
yeah,
perfect kind of combination for that deck, certainly in Standard, and I think also Pioneer. The only downside in Pioneer, I guess, is that a lot of the Leyline Binding decks that people sometimes play are also Karuga decks sometimes, but so that wouldn't be a Beanstalk deck. But yeah, just getting full domain and triggering Beanstalk, I think, is going to be something we see in Standard until Leyline Binding rotates, because that will be the first of those cards to rotate.
Yeah, it's funny to me that like they kind of nerfed domain by rotating all of the triomes. They're like, hey, here's this thing.
Yeah.
It's perfect for everything you want to do. And I just look at this thing, I'm like, yeah, I want to cut all other 3-drops from my deck for this card. Like,
yeah, that card also only costs 5 mana. Like you can just curve one into the other, you know, and stuff like that, and that's pretty powerful too.
Yep. I will say I did actually Lyserg proxied this card for his cube, the white Overlord, and my opponent played it. I'm like, I have no idea what this does. I'm like, holy shit, that's a lot of rate for like a not vintage cube cube, you know?
Yeah, I mean 4 mana for 4 power flying is not bad, and then as a large creature too that you could have 7 mana for or reanimate potentially, it's like.
Oh, I think what
pretty
happened to
hard.
me, it got flicker wisped, and then I was just actually dead.
Oh, yeah, that's funny too.
It's
Yeah.
funny, ephemerate doesn't work because it's not a creature,
No.
but flicker wisp
Yeah.
definitely does. So
The text of these cards saying they're not a creature and not saying like it can't attack or block is pretty interesting too, because
mhm.
like for standard also, like the domain deck has Sunfall or whatever, so like
Yep.
it's like a creature you get to sneak into play that doesn't get Sunfalled. That card's like Topiary Stomper rotated out of domain, and
hmm
that green one seems much better than Topiary Stomper.
I agree with you because Stomper only fixed I mean, it put the land into play untapped, which was worth something, but getting a 5-color land tapped in domain is
Stomper
worth so
didn't put it
much.
into untapped. That's just spelunking.
Really? Why?
Yeah.
Am I really? Did I just Mandela affect myself? Oh, I did. Okay, I
Yeah.
don't know.
This card is synergistic with the invasion that nobody plays anymore.
Invasion of
Stomper
Zendikar?
was. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
to be fair, it
Yeah.
attacked it cleanly. It
Yeah.
curved perfectly into that, but
Yeah, then you would cast a Trax and your opponent wanted to leave the game because it was not a realistic draw to ever beat, right?
yeah, and also I just
Yeah.
think like in the matchups, like maybe the bad matchups, like something kind of aggressive and low to the ground. If you had your Stomper into invasion draw, you just
hmm
kind of have 2/4/4s to suddenly block with on turn 4.
Yep, and that was super nice. I also
Yeah,
spent a lot of games versus like the Zorius bullshit decks, just making the Stomper and Invasion into a creature and trying to get them out of position so I could like resolve things I actually cared about, if that makes sense.
yeah.
But yeah, that's I guess that Overlord is
But
reluctant.
yeah, this white one. I mean, the other thing to consider with all of these is there's the Incarnation deck in Pioneer. So these
hmm
are all like differently costed enchantments that you can put into play for less, or two. They're also all creatures. So like, there might be the Incarnation deck might be the type of deck I imagine plays like 4 of the green one, but then like this one you can sack a 6-drop like Binding and get it off Incarnation, right? Like
hmm
I wouldn't be surprised if this sees a one of play in that deck, but maybe there's just better. Maybe because this one being an enchantment doesn't matter so much because you might not play an 8-drop. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
As people frantically Scryfall 8 drops in Pioneer and realize they're all terrible.
Yeah, I
uh,
haven't even looked,
yeah.
but like,
Yeah. So interesting to think about. Is there any hope for a reluctant role model? It has like weird modular.
um,
So note, it puts flying lifelink or +1/+1 counter on it, and those get transferred as well. So it's kind of
yeah,
interesting. This
it's
is
really
like
good with Springleaf Drum, but that's not legal in Standard, and that sounds a little weak for Pioneer.
Sentinel Stalwart is still in standard.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't worry. A lot of people have messaged me about Sentinel Stalwart survival creatures. I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe like it's not
I still
unreasonable.
think that Sunfall is such like a constraint on the format that
Sure.
like whatever the creature decks that C play are, they have to be really good.
That's why I think most of the creature decks you see like try to kill before Sunfall happens, or they have like a
Yeah,
fling in them. You know.
yeah, or I mean, I think the best example is when you look at all the creature types in Bloomburrow, and Lizards is really like the only one that's winning out, and it's just like a lot of hand disruption and a little bit of burn are both
Yeah.
just like things that go a long way.
hmm Yep. So probably not for now, but we'll see. Maybe at some point. Um. Okay. I'm interested. Oh, I guess we should talk
Yeah,
about.
both these auras
Yeah.
seem
Look,
interesting to me.
I mean, it's hard to not talk about Shard Mage's Rescue because it seems.
That's like a Snakeskin Veil that's better in your Ethereal Armor
Yeah,
deck.
yeah. And what about Sheltered by Ghosts? Also, like, well, it doesn't have Flash, but it does do a lot of things that are appealing for like an Aura style deck, which is like
Yeah,
Ward 2 lifelink +1/+0, and being a like an O ring sort of thing is worth a lot, right?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Light Cause deck is just significantly better in Pioneer.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever. Light Pause, sorry.
Yeah.
This being just another thing in your toolbox, and like I imagine that deck maybe could be struggling with like the red black prowess deck that's really popular in Pioneer now, but
Mm-hmm.
like this giving the interaction and the life swing in the same turn is like a huge deal against that deck.
Mm-hmm. What
And
about
they're never killing something with Ward 2, like in
yeah?
general.
Fair enough. All right. What about Split Up, which is a 1 white sorcery. Choose one. Destroy all tapped creatures or destroy all untapped creatures.
I think this is pretty bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like kind of excited about it. Then I thought about it more and like,
It's just not going to work too
yeah.
often. Not even your opponent. Your opponent doesn't even have to like try hard to play around it. Like they could just not know this card exists and they're going to play around it.
Yep, fair enough. How about Toby BC Befriender, which I think is a reference to like Monsters Inc. and not actually horror, which is kind of funny to think about. But
well, yeah, I mean the imaginary monster that comes to life, I think, is a old trope, but
yeah. Not a lot of hope, or
can't attack or block alone.
I guess I'll read the full text.
It's the nicest part about this card is that the token's not legendary, right?
That's true. So it's good to flicker the Toby itself.
Or like Essica's Chariot is interesting with this card.
So I guess I should read it for other people who haven't seen it. 2 and a white, 1/1 legendary creature. When it enters, create a 4/4 white beast token with this can't attack or block alone. As long as you control 4 or more creature tokens you control have flying. I don't know how often you'll get that last line of text, but that like actually seems kind of strong. Once that happens.
Yeah. The can't attack or block alone text, I'm just not optimistic. Like it's just not going to work very much.
It's hard to attack with your 3-mana 1/1, right?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, this is like a funny tropey sort of removal spell. It's like an O-ring. All right, trapped into the screen, 2 and a white enchantment. Ward 2. I guess they do this a lot. They just put ward on like the removal spells, right?
Well, yeah, these cards are just like so bad nowadays. They need to have ward. Like they keep making cards that are so good at killing cards of like any card type. And now we're even seeing, I think Modern is almost kind of power crept out Leyline Binding, and there's just like, it's just like vulnerable to like getting besieged or whatever, and just lots of reasons. Eldrazi decks have Devourer of Destiny or whatever, like World Breaker.
I will say the best thing about this card is that I think it's a flavor home run 100% for the trope, because it's like the screen is trapping the person. I guess I should read it. When trapped in the screen, enters exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. And the art is like clearly the person stuck inside the what looks to be like a very old-fashioned TV. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean all the TVs in this set seem pretty old-fashioned because they're from the 70s and 80s or 90s.
Oh my god, they really ripped off Stephen King for this.
You can't fit in a flat screen.
Yeah. Unsettling Twins throwback to The Shining, which I actually have watched. I actually have a funny story about that movie, which is my cousin, who's 1 year older than me, we were at the beach with my younger sister and her younger sister, and my older cousin wanted to rent The Shining, and then that night, neither of our sisters could fall asleep because it's like, we were like 13 and they were 12 or 11. It was just such a mistake to rent that movie.
Yeah. The Hover Ship is maybe a card that'll see play in Standard. I don't think it's going to be better than Skyclave Apparition and Pioneer, but...
Or Legacy.
Yeah. I mean... I also think, like, the conditions of what... Like, I think this card's just worse than Skyclave Apparition, but that doesn't mean it won't see play in Standard.
Sure. Wait until they print, like, a vehicle Stoneforge, then the needle might move. But probably not. Now, for a card I'm sure I'm going to lose to a lot in Limited, how about the Wandering Rescuer? Any hope for it anywhere? I'm not sure.
No, I think it just doesn't do... Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, going wide, you just don't care about your creatures having hexproof. Those just aren't things that you care about at all, I think.
So, yeah.
That one drop next to it is pretty funny because... I was reading it, and I saw, like, recently System Magic played, like, a white-blue humans deck in Pioneer that had a couple copies of Mardu Woe Reaper just to fill out their one-drop slot. And not even because they thought it was that good. and then I'm like, oh, maybe this is better. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I'm not sure it is. Like, it's kind of just impossible to turn on without having
Yeah.
already played the game.
Yep. Like,
And also, like, sometimes you'd play it on turn 1, and on turn 2 you attack with it, and it doesn't even have a target. Like,
they really tried to like make a nimble mongoose sort of thing. I don't know. It's very weird to
but
me.
it's an elite vanguard human for standard, and in standard that's a format that maybe, especially if you have the synergies like vehicles or whatever,
Sure.
that like it's good with vehicles or saddle, right? Because like at some point it won't be able to attack or block, and then you can spend some time getting the counters on it or the cards exiled with it, and then it can start attacking again and being very threatening. So
Yeah. Actually, I guess I should bring up Unwanted Remake. I maybe somewhere. It's a white instant, a single white instant. Destroy target creature. Its controller manifests dread. So like a throwback to like Pongify or Rapid Hybridization. Maybe somewhere, but probably not.
these cards are usually pretty terrible.
Yeah.
This one, I think, yeah, it's just not going to be good.
Yeah, so that's that card. That's the Wandering Rescuer. Also, I have a question. How did the Wanderer get to this plane? That's the real question I have.
There's some kind of link to Kamigawa because Kaido's here too. I was reading about that. And then Tamio's here too, right? Or maybe Tamio's not here, just Nashi.
Is that the rat ninja?
Yeah, the rat is Tamio's son.
Oh, huh.
Yeah, I don't. So.
Yeah. Well, that aside, Abhorrent Oculus has gotten a lot of attention. It's a tuna white creature eye. This is a giant eyeball in the picture. As an additional cost to cast a spell, exile 6 cards from your graveyard. Flying. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Manifest Dread. To clarify what Manifest Dread is, it's like Manifest, except you get to look at the top two, pick one, and the other one gets milled. So, do you have any thoughts on this for any format, really?
Yeah, there's like a blue-white standard deck with like Monastery Mentor and Haughty and Helping Hand.
Yep.
And I think that card both mills. That deck also like has Picklock Prankster and some things. So this card could see play in that deck. I mean, I think casting it is really hard.
Yes.
You know, and then in Pioneer, it seems unplayable because it's just competing with Treasure Cruise. So like, but it's a lot more powerful if you can get it into your graveyard and then return it for 1 mana. But even then, there's other cards that are powerful too. But yeah, I mean, in Standard maybe. In Pioneer, it looks hopeless. It's also just like working hard for a creature that dies to push or Lightning Axe is not really appealing.
Yeah, that's about how I feel about it. Now, the real question is, will people play this in some sort of EDH deck? And will it be good?
I'm sure they will. Yeah, the scaling with 3 opponents is...
Oh, yeah, it's
always
much better, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's actually one thing I wanted to bring up. I much prefer this type of design for Commander as opposed to Initiative. Like, just like in terms of the power scaling. Whereas, like, Initiative was designed to be fine power scaling wise for the 4-player game, whereas in the 1v1 game...
Well, it's weird because, I mean, to be fair, Initiative came out in a Commander set. Like, that one seems fair. And I also think that things like Monarch and Initiative, the limited experience I have with them in 4-player games, are actually very fun. Because they make those games combat-driven in a game that's normally not very combat-driven because it's like 40 life.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about it. Obviously, like, to be quite fair, I'm like kind of not the most pro 4-player person experience, but
yeah, of course. But the Initiative, it sucks that they're legal in Legacy in these formats, but it did come out in a set called Commander Legends, so it's a little hard to blame.
They could have just made it not legal in Legacy or Vintage, and no one
it's more an issue that they're legal in those formats. I think it probably was like amazing in the limited format and really fun. That's my guess.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Do these rooms do anything? Doesn't really look like it.
Yeah, I mean, one's a 1-mana sorcery speed unsummon, but unsummon at sorcery speed is a lot worse.
Well, one thing I do like about the locked room thing, I think it's just like a fantastic flavor design. Like, it makes sense, you know.
Yeah, I mean it's a neat way. Like all these mechanics are always just very much
Kicker in
kicker,
disguise.
but
Yeah.
it's nice that these are like split
Uh-huh.
cards that you can commit to. You commit to half of them at a time. It's just a new way of doing it. It makes sense.
So there are technically 5 basic land cyclers. I kind of just assumed that they were all bad, but
Yeah,
maybe.
I've looked.
Okay.
I don't think any of them are going to see play in Living End or anything like that. Like 2 mana
Okay.
to cycle
Sure.
is for a land is just not going to be good. They're all
Also,
they're all worse than Timeless Dragon, also, which is like not going to see play in Living Ends anyways.
fair enough. All right, Enduring Curiosity. This is kind of an interesting one because it's like a throwback to like Biden of Thassa, if you remember that. It is also the
Yeah,
4/3 by itself, and also
the
when it.
Flash is good too.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's relevant on both as like Flash is just a very powerful ability, and obviously,
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes you might make an attack where your opponent could have blocked, but they didn't want to trade their creature, and you flash this in, and then also other times you're just going to be able to play around counter magic or whatever by
Mm-hmm.
playing this at their end step.
I guess I'll read it real quick. 2 blue, 4/3 enchantment creature cat glimmer. It looks like most of the enchantment creatures are glimmers, or a lot of them are. It has flash. It also has when a creature you control deals combat damage to player, draw a card. When this dies, if it was a creature, return to the battlefield under its owner's control. It's an enchantment. So I do remember people used to play Biden of Thassa, which was not a creature and has most of the same text. And so, like, you trade off and you get the curiosity or the coastal piracy, and that seems like a lot. Like, it's a pretty good rate card, I think.
Yeah. Problem with all these curiosities, or not the enduring cards, are that they're also just going to get exiled a lot with the removal.
Sure.
I think about in standard. Like the
Leyline
set has Scorching
Binding.
Dragonfire reprints. It also has
Oh,
another red
really?
card. It's yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's also like Torch the
Yeah.
Tower, and Torch the Tower is about to get like a little better. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
like this weird 2 mana Torch the Tower S card that does 5 damage that I think exiles also. Maybe
There's
I'm wrong
also
about exiling.
there's also a Obliterating Bolt, but that's a sorcery, so it's a little bit worse.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably good to put a lot of exile failsafes in when you have cards that look like this.
yeah,
Um, well, you can play 8 slip through spaces in Pioneer if you want to.
yep.
So this is literally a functional reprint, which is blue. Well, I guess it doesn't have devoid. Okay, I the other one had devoid for
Yeah,
flavor reasons, but this is enter the enigma. Blue target creature can't be blocked this turn. Draw a card. I don't know. Some deck might want it somewhere. It's like kind of important for certain types of decks, but not very interesting to talk about, I guess. All right, so is this the Enchantress?
it
It is.
is.
So Entity Tracker, 2 and a blue, flash. When it when an enchantment you control enters, or whenever you fully unlock a room, draw a card. Kind of just assume this is not going to be good enough, and it's also like in the wrong color. But
Yeah, it's not going to go in the green-white deck I'm talking about. I mean, having flash is very powerful with this type of effect. Your opponent might tap out, and you can flash this in and untap and get multiple cards off it. But it's also like a 2/3 is just like not doing anything. I mean, that's not true because it has flash. There will be aggro
sure.
decks you flash this in against and block against too, and eat one of their guys. Like, so it might see play if it has a home, but it's not. I don't think it's a Bant deck. I think it's just like a blue-white deck or something. It's not. Yeah, it will just be more of a controlling enchantment deck, I imagine.
So now I just realized there are 4 blue fears, and I'm just like, why are there so many of these?
Yeah, I don't
it's very
think. I guess the most interesting one is Fear of Isolation because it's like
yeah.
a core Skyfisher. I don't think core Skyfisher does that. Like, it's just not a card that scales with current power level of Magic.
Do you want me to tell you where this is actually a replacement for another card in an older format?
Or Arctic Merfolk.
God damn, you're too good at this.
Yeah,
Yes. You just
yeah.
knew. Once I said it like that, you knew.
I already knew. Yeah, I was like, I think it's like uncounterable bounce your own thing basically. But,
well, they're both uncounterable. It's just Arctic
yeah.
Merfolk loses to Plague Engineer on whatever, or like I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Like
yeah,
the Lauren player will put one of these in their deck over Arctic Merfolk and it'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, but one of the recruiters doesn't get this.
Yeah, but most people play the the power recruiter instead of the toughness recruiter.
Okay.
But it obviously like you. I also am skeptical that Aloran is any good, and also whether it's better to do that instead of just putting a bunch of Azracs in your deck, which is like actually one shot your opponent. But
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. Um, Get Out. Is this like worth anything anywhere? It's a blue instant. Choose one. Target creature or enchantment spell, or return one or two target creatures and such war enchantments you own to your hand.
This doesn't seem like it's gonna matter.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Another ley line.
Does this line do? Oh, it's Well,
Conspiracy.
is that the card I'm thinking of? I was thinking of adaptive. No, I don't know. There's some card I'm thinking of.
Conspiracy is like the black one, right?
Yeah.
The original.
Yep.
Yeah.
But ley lining it is a lot more powerful than having to pay 5 mana for it.
Yeah, but once again, like, what can the upside really be? Like,
well,
did you just build your deck around having this ley line? Like,
I will tell a very old story where there used to be an MTGO Vanguard that let you choose a creature type, and all your creatures were that creature type. So one of the best decks in like extended Vanguard was Elves, because Symbiote, whatever mana dork was just Infinite Storm on turn 2. Because you would return the Symbiote every time. So all these decks were just Bant with like Brain Freeze, Grape Shot, 4 Birds of Paradise. They were playing a bunch of either Living Wish or Eldamri's Call, I don't remember which. And there were a bunch of Orm's Chants. This was also when like Orm's Chant was like 70 tickets on MTGO, so it was like kind of an expensive deck to build. But like obviously it being your Vanguard is a lot more powerful than having to put Leyline in the deck, but maybe like someone does something similar to that at some point, right? Probably not.
Why is this card next to an artifact? I just noticed it's not an enchantment, it's an artifact.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird, but I guess like the flavor is that Grimoire is like a book you read. Like Grimoire of the Dead was also an artifact.
An artifact, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that card doesn't seem like it does much to me because it costs 6.
It seems bad, and it's hard to abuse it as a combo with anything because when you gain life, draw that many cards is mandatory. So, like for example, this is legal in Standard with Shieldred, but if you played this with Shieldred, you would just lose to decking immediately.
That's funny. That is like Consecrated Sphinx, but in the bad way. You just auto deck instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk much about. Now, the Mind Skinner is a card that has gotten a lot of attention. I will read it real quick. Blue. Legendary enchantment creature Nightmare. It can't be blocked. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent, prevent that damage, and each opponent mills that many cards, it's a 10-1. This is a throwback to Crumbling Sanctuary from Mercadian Masks, which is an artifact that John Finkel actually won Worlds with. There was one in his deck to tinker for, in case if he had to like mill his opponent out instead of like dealing them lethal damage. But the actual combo is with Insult, because Insult to Injury from Amonkhet says damage can't be prevented this turn, and double that damage.
So, yeah, and this can't be blocked. It's obviously very vulnerable. I think the biggest issue with that combo in Pioneer, which I assume is the format you care about a combo like that, is the mana. But I guess people have played like Creativity, and this is kind of like the opposite of Creativity, which is achievable. I was looking for cards that could maybe give you the ability to put this into play with haste, and I think the best one I found was the Phyrexian Nahiri.
What about Maximize Velocity?
Well, that would cost 7 mana, but yeah.
Okay, sure.
What's nice is if you play Phyrexian Nahiri on turn 3 and discard this, you're threatening to bring it back with your Insult combo, but you don't have to commit to it.
I'm gonna pull up the Nahiri.
Yeah.
Which one is it called? Oh, Nahiri, the Unforgiving?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't think I've seen anyone mention this. I think what Jacob has in mind is you cast this on turn 3 because you can pay 2 life instead of the white-red. And then you would +1 to discard your Mind... What's it called? Mind Flayer? Mind Skinner. And draw a card. And then next turn you would just 0... fake reanimate it, I suppose, and cast Insult on it. and that just
Yeah,
requires you to beat Boros essentially.
but what's nice is like without that thing having haste, your opponent just has so much opportunity to remove it.
Yep.
Whereas if you like played Nahiri and discarded it, your opponent would want to leave up removal, but then you just like don't have to bring your thing back and go for it. You know, like it doesn't actually sound good enough for Pioneer to me, but that would be like the way I'd want to do it. And then also it's still that's making your mana worse because you're adding a color, and obviously you do want to be able to just play the Mind Skinner on turn 3 in this deck and threaten to win the game and versus Lotus Field or whatever. I mean, this card also dies to Beseju, so that's just not even helping its case.
Yeah, I don't think we can ever do this, but it's interesting to think about, I guess. All right, I'm gonna click on this room real quick to see if it does anything. Okay, actually, this might do something somewhere. So there are two halves: mirror room, which is 2 and a blue. When you unlock this door, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it's a reflection in addition to its other types. And Fractured Realm, which is the other room. If a triggered ability of a permanent you control triggers an additional time. So obviously you're getting like what's the card? Mirror image on the front side, and you're getting like a very expensive, I guess like half of an Elishnorn on the backside.
What's funny reading these for the first time and thinking about it is that you can't fuse them, and this would be one where that would be. I'm thinking about like if you played Lumra and you put a bunch of lands into play, you'd really wish that you could fuse this next turn and have both enchantments in play simultaneously, but you actually can't.
Can't you just unlock immediately right after you cast it?
Well, it's a source. You can only unlock at sorcery speed.
Oh, I see.
I guess you would just play the 7 mana half and then the 3 mana half. So never mind. That's fine. Yeah, I'm just thinking about it backwards.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, don't think you'll see it play anywhere, but it's a interesting card. Does this Overlord do anything? So it says a pending for 1 blue.
It's like the worst one.
Yeah, I mean 3 blue 5/3. Impending for 1 blue flying. When it enters or attacks, draw 2, then discard a card. Not the most powerful, but maybe someone plays it somewhere.
Yeah, and because like Reenact the Crime is like kind of the premier payoff for looting in Standard right now, and this is just like not very synergistic with it. You know what I mean? Like you want to be able to loot for 0 mana in Standard.
All right, I'm gonna call out Paranormal Analyst not for constructed or anything, but just for draft. If you like take this thing early, I think it's just gonna be like extremely good.
Yeah, I think.
So to clarify, it's a 1 and a blue 1/3. Whenever you manifest dread, put a card you put into your graveyard this way into your hand. Basically, it means all of your manifest dread cards are just make the 2/2 and draw the other card. So it's like sleight of hand. You're attaching sleight of hand to all of your manifest dread cards.
Yeah. Which makes it more likely you're going to keep manifesting dread.
Oh, it just makes it more likely your opponent dies like within 3 turns or whatever, I think. But I guess I'll read Silent Hall Keeper maybe somewhere. Probably not, but it's a 1 and a blue 1/1 enchantment creature. It can't be blocked. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Put 2+1 counters on it. Draw a card, or basically clone a different creature you control. I don't know, like. I guess it's like kind of awkward actually. You need to have another good creature. It's never gonna solo a game by itself, right?
I mean, you don't need to have another creature, right? It becomes a 3/3 unblockable that drew you a card, but
yeah, but I feel like that just doesn't like do enough in the modern era of Magic. Yeah,
I don't think it matters in Standard. It's just too small. Like I don't know. I guess it's another thing you could consider in your deck with Gix because it works with Gix.
Wait, but it says another target creature you control. It can't copy itself.
Yeah, I guess it would be bad if your only other creature was Gix.
Yeah,
I just meant it works with Gix in the sense that you just want to play creatures that can't be blocked before you play Gix.
So someone's asking if you have 2 copies of this out, can you like reset by choosing the other one? I guess you can.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. That's interesting. Still not very hopeful for it. Yes.
Yeah.
Have you read the saga or / thought about it?
Yeah, it seems impossible to build your deck in a way that this will be like like ultimately it's going to be hard to beat out the type land in your deck.
Sure.
Like,
yeah,
that's going to be the most likely way to build 2 cards that share a card type.
Well, Enchantment Land? No, I guess there's not enough of this. There's like only one of those, right?
Yeah. This card might, like, I don't know. I think the odds that you draw a card off the trigger are not great, but it does happen 3 times, but that's still really slow. I don't know what Tamiyo Planeswalkers are even in Standard.
I assume only the Phyrexian one, right? Tamiyo.
Oh yeah, I suppose, yeah.
But that card's not like that's not a very scary card to play against, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You would want double face
lands.
But they're only the spell side.
Legal
on the
and modern. Yeah. I guess there's some legal and pioneer, but yeah, they're.
I don't know. I'm sure someone will have some goofy idea at some point. Then
I mean, it's weird because it's like it doesn't look that good to me, but there's a chance you just like play this and it's completely broken. And if it like that's what's weird to me is like I've never really thought about the math of a card like this before, and I haven't done it yet. But like, my guess is that it's not just completely broken, but it could just like the math could just be such that it's just a broken card that often draws you many cards. And I mean, the best it can ever be is just a massive card draw spell in every regard, though.
Also, the Phyrexian Tamiyo actually was in Neon Dynasty, so that's not even legal. So I don't. Good
so
call
it's
out.
Just referencing.
Yeah.
Something that can't happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I want to shout out Unable to Scream for a few reasons. Cheap enchantment that like technically removes things if you're like mono blue. It basically turns. It's a blue enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a toy with base power and toughness O2 in addition to those types. As long as an enchanted creature is face down and cannot be turned up, I guess that's a reference to the Manifest Dread being everywhere here. But
there's Disguise in this Standard too.
Oh yeah, but it's also a shout out to the fact that I think it was funny that the playtest name of this card was Dollification, which I think is like a very funny name for a card.
Yeah, I mean, Witness Protection saw play in the Mono Blue Spirits deck in Pioneer, and this card seems better. So I mean, if it's pretty exclusive to Mono Blue or maybe Simic decks that would want this. Once you have access to white, red, or black, I assume you just have better removal options. But yeah.
I just want to shout it out, and the playtest name, it was kind of funny to me. All right. I will say I don't like the slashers looking at me.
The Comeback Wrong card is funny to me just because like it's just contextual on what types of creatures your opponents are playing, but
wait,
it could be like a sideboard card.
So I'll read it real quick. Comeback Wrong, 2 black sorcery, destroy target creature. If a creature card is put to a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under your control. Sacrifice at the beginning next upkeep. Clearly very reasonable versus Atraxa, right?
It does not get haste, but yeah, I mean,
but no,
that's like specifically there is a domain deck with both like Beza and Atraxa or whatever. Like,
that's the deck I played in this only Store Championships I played in.
A 3-mana sorcery is obviously just not main deckable, but it could be like a sideboard card when you want some removal spells in your deck because these decks have giant things you need to get out of the way to win the game, and if you're going to have them, you might as well have like the best possible one. So if it would take needing the sideboard slots to justify, but I could see it.
Yep, fair enough. So for a more interesting card, I'll read Demonic Council. I guess you've probably thought about this. It's a 1 black sorcery. Search your library for a demon card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Instead, if you have Delirium, you can search your library for any card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So, it's been a while since we've seen like a throwback to literal Demonic Tutor, I think, is the best way of putting this, and it's clearly the most throwback possible. Obviously, people search for demons. There's like a few, like Gristlebrand's a demon, but
you have to play a deck that wants some random demon in it and also gets Delirium. Also, I think Demonic Tutor straight up is, I would just call it an overrated card. I don't really know. I think I discussed this when we actually played.
We did.
Commander, where it's just like you have to be comboing. And to be fair, like demons like Gristlebrand or whatever can be used in a combo. Like, you know, if you were through the Breach deck that got Delirium and had Gristlebrand, there's some things that make sense, but I don't think that deck is really a thing.
Yeah, I was thinking more like maybe somehow like Greasefang space with like self mill, but probably not.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, I think you just still need to want some weird one of demon. I don't know if there's like a demon you could play in Lotus Field that makes sense, but then I don't even know that if that deck's very good at getting Delirium.
I don't think it really is.
Yeah.
So I guess that's enough of that card. Now, I don't know if anyone's ever going to try this, but is it possible Doomsday Excruciator's ever broken? My
No,
instinct
it's not
is
like
no.
you get to pick the cards.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Well,
pretty terrible.
the only way you can get to that board state is like if you're like somehow stacking the bottom of your deck with some really terrible cards like Bark Form Harvester.
I know
right?
how to stack the bottom of your deck. You just mulligan.
Yeah, but that only stacks one card, right? What if you want to stack like 5?
But if you mulligan more.
Oh, I guess that's the case. I guess putting Doomsday Excruciator in your deck makes it more likely you have to mulligan a bunch anyways, right?
Yeah.
Very funny, like, throwback to Doomsday, but unlike Doomsday, this doesn't really insta-kill your opponent after you've cast it. More likely, it'll just make the game awkward for you.
Yeah, this card's very... It's like a really crappy Inverter of Truth because it's impossible to cast. Like, if it was... You know, if it was just like a 4-drop, then I could see maybe... Like, even all black mana, I could maybe see trying to bring back Inverter and Pioneer or whatever, but 6 is just, like, not real.
Yep, agree with you. That enduring thing doesn't really matter. Well, I guess this is a casual appeal thing. Yeah.
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 I mean, that card, the Fear of Lost Teeth card is just funny because I don't think it'll see play, but it is like very effective at beating decks with a bunch of 1/1s trying to attack you. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you really don't
I don't
ever
think that
want...
deck exists, and
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't existed in a long time. But yeah, if there was a bunch of Savannah Lions in Standard or whatever, this would be much more appealing as a sideboard card.
Is Final Vengeance Fringe playable somewhere? It's like...
It might be, yeah.
It's one of the best bones... So it's basically Bone Splinters, except instead of destroy target creature, it's exile target creature.
And being able to pick enchantment would matter potentially too.
Oh, sack Hatching Plans, draw 3?
Yeah. Hatching Plans was a standard legal set. It just wasn't standard legal.
Yeah, well, probably for the best. All right, I'm going to read this real quick to make sure it does nothing. This does not seem like it does very much to me, but...
Not being a blood artist that doesn't come with the body is like probably not like, you know, we've seen like Bastion of Remembrance, but yeah, and then 8 mana is just not a real amount of mana to have in a game that would want to play a bunch of creatures that you want to sacrifice.
Grievous Wound, does that do anything? Don't think so. Wait, I guess question about that is if you attack with multiple creatures, it doesn't like stack multiple times, right? It's just all one.
I believe. I actually don't know that answer at all.
All right. Well, we'll ask a judge. Any judges in chat? I guess I'll also read the card. Grievous Wound is 3 black enchant player. Enchant player can't gain a life. Whenever it's enchant player is dealt damage, they lose half their life rounded up. So the question that I have is if you attack with, say, 5 creatures, that would kill them if each like damage hitting them was counted as them being dealt damage separately, or is it just one instance? And we'll wait for the answer and look for a different card because I don't think the card's very good. Oh, Leyline of the Void reprint. That's probably a good thing to do.
Well, I don't think the value thing matters. I actually don't like this. I wish they'd just designed a new black Leyline that did something different. I think that, like, if you want to... Like, I also think if there's some broken graveyard deck in Standard that you're trying to potentially watch out for by playing this card, I just don't enjoy Leyline of the Void's, like, existence in general. Like, in a format like Modern, like, sure, it needs to exist, but even in, like, Pioneer, which I know it's already legal, and it's just, like... it makes the game just about like your opening hand so often. I mean, it's not even like there's no way in standard there's going to be a deck that powerful that you should play Leyline of the Void. Like, I feel like you'd be much better off. There's like a 1-mana artifact in the set that just taps to exile target card from a graveyard. Something that like you can draw in the first few turns.
Sure. Anyways, I guess people loved the Meat Hook Massacre so much that they decided to do Meat Hook Massacre 2.
Yeah, the people that love it play Commander, and this looks like it only does anything in Commander.
But I'll read all of the text just in case. XXBBBB, say that 5 times fast. When Meat Hook Massacre 2 enters, each player sacrifices X creatures. When a creature you control dies, you may pay 3. If you do, return that card under your control with a finality counter on it. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, they may pay 3 life. If they don't, return that creature under your control with a finality counter on it. So I guess it's just like a mid-range haymaker, right? If you were to conceivably play it in standard, which I don't think you can, because to do it just for 1 costs 6 mana, which is just like infinity.
GDAN 12, I believe the answer is no to your question. I just looked up blurb. I mean, I knew what it did, but I just had to read the exact words.
Matt McCall has a good point. He likes to joke that similar to most horror sequels, Meat Hook Massacre 2 is very bad.
Yeah.
That's funny. Murder Recurrent makes sense, I guess.
Nowhere to Run is a very interesting card to exist.
Yeah, I kind of hate it. It's really ham-handed in what it's doing, but we'll read the card. Nowhere to Run. 1 and a B enchantment, but it has flash. When it enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -3/-3 until end of turn. Now, the joke is, there's more text to this card. Creatures you control can be the target of spells or abilities as though they didn't have hexproof. Ward abilities of those creatures don't trigger. Funny point is, Sylvan Safekeeper gives Shroud. So it's just like, we somehow didn't want to reference Shroud ever again. But, I don't know.
This card, I mean, obviously, if you're worried about boggles or stuff, gives you more outs. On top of that, like, there's a deck in Standard that people call Feyblade, which I like, that just has like Braids and Zoraline, not always Zoraline, Braids and Nurturing Pixie. Like, this is just, even without the last line of text, might see play, just because it leaves around something, a piece of cardboard that you can interact with.
So I think the deck you were referring to, Amaz played it against me round 1 of RC Dallas and I lost. It's just like Orzhov value, right?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, I would agree that like that deck he was playing and the deck I'm describing do the same thing, but I think the overlapping cards between those two decks is actually very small since then.
Oh, does it still play Tithing Blade?
It does, yeah. Okay. And I guess, yeah. But did his deck play Braids?
Yeah, it played 4 Braids.
Okay, then I'm mistaken, yeah. I guess the other interesting thing about that deck, and this card also works with in some way, is, I mean, I guess one that won the challenge didn't play recently, but that deck has the ability to play with Temporary Lockdown's main deck, and not, if your opponent isn't like a deck that's very good against you can just exile all your own things with good ETBs and then sack your Lockdown and get them all again. Which
that's
is
interesting, yeah. I'm not reading that card. I don't think it does anything. The Stick Twister.
Yeah, this Overlord is interesting to me because developing it for only 2 mana is really powerful. But historically, looking at your top 4 only for a creature or planeswalker, which is basically the same as like only a creature if you build your deck, like there's just like a limit to how often that hits, and it's not as high as you'd think. And
I agree with you.
There's been times we've played like Gather the Pact. Usually these lands have to say like or these cards have to say like or lands to be a reliable thing. Like,
yeah. Also worth noting, if you fill your deck with Overlords, this cannot get the other Overlords because it has non-avatar on it.
Avatar too, yeah. Which also just means it, like, if you put even not a bunch of Overlords in your deck of all of them, but just 4 of this, you're lowering your ability to hit more cards with it.
Yep, definitely agree with you.
But spending 5 a 5/5 at the same time is certainly like some kind of value. It's also only 5 mana on the front half, but yeah, I'm not like optimistic, but
agree with you. Does this room do anything? Doesn't seem like it. Wait, I guess I'll open it and make sure. Beginning of your end step, draw a card. If you control a demon, each player loses 2 life. You gain 2 life, otherwise you lose 2 life. And then you can make a 6/6 demon flying creature. No, rate reads like people don't play Phyrexian Arena, but like
yeah, I mean, this card seems really good to me if your deck was a bunch of 1 and 2 mana demons.
I don't think many of those exist, right?
I don't think that exists. But if they like planted that into standard at some point,
Sure.
like like a Ravnica set and all the Rakdos cards. I mean, I guess there's literally a Ravnica set in standard. I don't know what the Rakdos cards look like, but
well, the joke is, what are the changelings in Bloomburrow, right?
Sure, but
like
if you played this on turn 3 and you drew a card and drained your opponent 2 life,
sure,
that's pretty good. Yeah. Like
that's quite good.
But it's pretty terrible if you don't have a demon, and it gives you a demon, but that's really slow and also bad. But
yep,
if you were just like a demon aggro deck, that would be like that'd be pretty appealing to me, to be honest.
Yep.
The card to the left of it is also pretty unique.
Oh, I didn't actually read it. Sporogenic Infection. 1 in a B enchant creature. When it enters, target player sacrifices a creature other than enchanted creature. I don't think we've ever seen that text before.
It's just like an edict that you can pick their worst creature that they can't sack, but it's a sorcery. But still, that's like somewhat unique. Like,
and then if you ever like trump it, then it will die as well. Because
it's like another card that is like useful to know exists for your sideboard or whatever, because there might be some deck that you want to solve that problem against. You can also, if your opponent only had 1 creature, but you were playing creatures, you can enchant your own creature of this to still edict them.
Anyways, let's get to the villain of the set, which is Valgavoth, Terror Eater. 6BB, legendary creature, Elder Demon, flying lifelink. Ward, sacrifice 3 non-permanents. If your card you didn't control would be put into a opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. During your turn, you may play cards exiled with Valgavoth. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than play its mana cost. So, the joke is, once you get this into play, it's obviously kind of a broken card. The question is, how do you get into play?
Yeah, also, comparing it to other expensive cards that you can cheat into play, it's not really better, right? That's how I view it. It's just like, it's not a card you can cast. It's just like, it doesn't, like, I guess the part where you can pay with life, like, you'd need to cheat this into play and then like mill your opponent or something and then win the game with their deck all in 1 turn. It's just not something I think is realistic. Yeah, it's hard to kill, but like Atraxa just draws 5 cards, and if they don't kill it, just is unbeatable on board.
It is funny that Nowhere to Run plus Karakas is actually okay versus Valgavoth because the ward.
No, the ward wouldn't trigger. Yeah.
But I also have a question of what cube has Nowhere to Run and Valgavoth and Karakas. I guess like potentially they could put all those cards in the Vintage Cube next Vintage Cube update, right?
Yeah, and it's just like Gristlebrand's even like a card that's been kind of outclassed by today's standards for reanimating, and this card doesn't even seem better than that.
I agree with you.
Since then, we've gotten Archon and Atraxa, which are like the 2 best ever.
I will say, I do think people underrate Gristlebrand specifically versus control decks only. But like, otherwise I agree with you, because I have played 1 Gristlebrand in those like Dimir decks in Legacy because I found it was hard to beat like up the beanstalk with just Atraxa. Because like you would often get into a board state where they would actually kill all of your stuff, and your leftovers weren't actually good enough, whereas a draw 14 was good enough to like close the door on them.
Yeah.
Anyways, I've read a lot of discourse about this like Dark Vanishing / Disenchant for black and people complaining that it exists. I'm like, I don't know. It's fine for this card to exist.
Yeah, I don't really mind that ability to exist. It's already existed for a while. This will be a reasonable sideboard card and probably only standard just when you need it, when you're that type of deck.
People occasionally play Feed the Swarm in Vintage for what it's worth, but I don't think you can justify playing this over Feed the Swarm in Vintage. Like
in any format that Feed the Swarm's legal, I think I would just rather play Feed the Swarm. But
this doesn't do anything. I will say
That's the card I referenced, the Betrayer's Bargain.
Oh, interesting. So 1 and a red, instant, as an additional cost, sack a creature or enchantment, or pay 2. I like
Yeah.
some of that. Deals 5 to target creature. If it would die this turn, exiles it. That'll probably see play somewhere. I don't know where.
Yeah.
But...
So in Standard, it's not like it's the best card, but Storm Chaser's talent is like the 1-mana talent that makes an Otter.
Yep.
And that's just like a creature and an enchantment in the same card. And
Jarvis,
like depending on which way the game's going, sacrificing either half of it is like somewhat reasonable, because the other half can still, like a 1/1 prowess could still be a card in your game, or the enchantment that grows into value could also be a card in your game. So I don't know. I think there's like maybe a home for like, because also Torch the Tower is very similar to this card. Like if you have the creature tokens and enchantments, you can sack the tokens you get from Ral, the Otter Ral from Bloomburrow to this, and 5 damage in exiling, and you can also just pay 4 mana to cast this, which is not even a bad deal, especially at instant speed. Like that's above rate, but it's still like a thing you can do.
Yep, definitely agree with you. I will shout out Chainsaw because I'm in like a bunch of legacy servers, and people are like, this actually makes sense in like the Boros Death and Taxes decks, like
sure,
because it's like basically a removal spell you can Stoneforge Mystic for. People have been playing Phantom Blade, which I don't know if you know what that card does.
I know what it does. I've seen it in the modern deck list dumps too from Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. So this is a 1 and a red artifact equipment. When it enters, deals 3 damage up to one target creature. So you don't have to, I guess. When one or more creatures die, put a rev counter on Chainsaw, and it has equip 3. Equip creature gets +X/+0, where X is the number of rev counters on it. I don't think the intention is to ever equip this thing. It is to just like cast it and then like Flicker Wisp it or Yori on it or whatever and get some value.
Yeah.
But doesn't matter. So cursed recording, the art like again drives me insane, but that's a me problem. B, I don't know what you're supposed to do with this card, but it like.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a Pyromancer's Goggles. Obviously, it's like limited, but also in Standard, you can just sack it to torch. Like you can the actual mechanic bargain lets you sacrifice artifacts, right?
It's artifacts, enchantments, or tokens. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, if your deck assumingly just has like 4 Torch the Tower with this in it, and at some point you can just sack this. You can sack it as your 7th spell too. Like,
oh, that's okay.
You can tap this, cast a stronger spell than Torch the Tower, and then in response sack this to Torch the Tower, right? Because it won't get the 7th time counter, because it'll just remember that it had 6.
Yes, I think that's correct, because the ability will be on the stack.
Those counters, like the fact that it has to remove those counters, makes it seem impossible for it to 20 you. In that spot.
So I don't know, what instance or sorceries can we use with this in Standard? I don't know.
Yeah, there's no like
there's no Cruel Ultimatum, right?
Well, that's not what you're looking. I mean, like the really, I'm thinking about the Goggles deck from Standard, which it wasn't the best deck, I'll admit, but like
Tormenting Voice. Tormenting Voice.
Yeah, well, Magnetic Insight was like the best one.
Sure.
Because it costs 1.
And you just drew 4
cards.
Yeah.
And you want some expensive cards, but you don't want like a bunch of expensive cards in your deck. This is kind of like taking the place of your expensive grindy card.
Yep. Big Score. Didn't Big Score rotate because it was from Streets of New Capenna?
Yeah, it did.
Is Magnetic Insight being reprinted? Probably not, but who can say?
I don't think so.
Yeah. There's a million Tormenting Voices.
I don't even think there's any Time Warps in Standard. Those are among like the best possible things to do with this. But if they did print a Time Warp in Standard, I could see like a blue-red deck that's like, I have this and my 1-mana removal spells and my Sleight of Hands, and at some point I can just like double Time Walk and win.
So Chandra 6 is still legal, so it's similar vibes to that, but
That's true, yeah.
And Chandra 6 is obviously a much better card to draw on most board states because you can like just kill 2 of their creatures with it or whatever. But I don't know, like if someone like built a deck around it and it looked fine, I would probably try it for like 5 matches and then like be done with it.
I think it's really Torch the Tower's existence that's like the only reason I think this could be a card.
All right. I want to talk about Fear of Missing Out, which fantastic name for a magic card. Enchantment Nightmare. When it enters, discard a card, then draw a card. Delirium. When it attacks first time each turn, if there are four or more card types among cards in your graveyard, untap target creature. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Any thoughts on this?
I don't think it's gonna be good enough for Pioneer because it's just like, I don't know. The combos with it are kind of limited because it can only untap one creature, and it itself can only be once per turn. Like, it doesn't combo with Fable. It only gives you an attack for 2 for every mana you have with a flipped Fable. It's like a little value creature, and being an enchantment creature is obviously nice when your deck's trying to have Delirium. It helps you get Delirium by discarding. If you're Hellbent and you play this, you don't have to discard and you still draw. I could see it seeing some play in standards, but not in a deck that exists right now, I guess.
Makes a lot of sense. Hand That Feeds is also a terrifying card and a great name for a card.
Yeah.
Oh, so Grab the Prize, I guess, works with the cursed thing, right?
Oh, yeah. That's still not like as big of a game as I'm liking as I want to play.
Yeah, fair enough.
Mardu Greasefang with Fear of Missing Out. Yeah, like those things are nice, but I think now in Grizzly Salvage and Cash Grab are just like the perfect cards for Greasefang. It's so hard to get better.
I forgot about Cash Grab, but yeah, that's super nice because Cash Grab can also get like
They just give you it's a deck that kind of, I wouldn't say aggressively mulligans, but mulligans somewhat. And just like the fact that like you can just have draws where you turn 1 Thoughtseize your opponent and turn 2 play one of those 2 cards and then find Greasefang and a vehicle. It's just like perfect. It just means like your mulligan to 5 can still be like your nut draw.
Yep, agree with you.
Like it's so hard to not play green in Greasefang. I think as someone that a while ago got really into Greasefang for the first Pioneer RC ever, like it's just like impossible to miss out on that color.
Yeah, I think you and Daryl were really high on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Another Leyline. This is a brand new Leyline, right? Leyline of Resonance.
Yes. This one, was talked about on the System Magic stream, and I think their points about it were kind of perfect. It's just like there's a lot of pump, with Heartfire Hero. There's a lot of pump spell decks floating around right now, and yeah, if this isn't your opening hand, like there's probably turn 2 kills or whatever. Maybe not quite turn 2, but like it's gonna make it really easy to kill. But it's just like the decks just can't afford to draw this card.
I agree. That was also a lot of those like pump spell decks. Some of your pump spells cantrip like Ancestral Anger, and if you just like draw this to dead end instead of like drawing another spell that like actually does something, it's like probably going to cost you the game more often than not. So yeah, cool card. Red Overlord, obviously like a fine card to like maybe.
And that's the one that in like the Incarnation Fires deck in Pioneer, I kind of would assume sees, especially if you're going to play the one that gives you the land token that costs 5. This is like a 6-drop to go get it. You can just play it. If you draw it, it's not that bad. Like it does 4 to something. Like this seems like a totally reasonable one of in that type of deck. I want to point out the Norrin. I mean, that card's like pretty unique, and I don't know. I could see it being good in Cube.
That's an interesting card. It can't block. This is a funny riff on Norrin the Wary, obviously. It's like
it's also it's like that mechanic. What is it, like Gustwayne?
Gust Cloak.
Like,
Gust Cloak, Harrier, Gust Cloak.
Very similar, right? Yeah. Where like it gives you this ability to like alpha with your whole team into one giant blocker and not just lose your guy.
Yep. The Gust Cloaks were pretty good in draft, I will say. So this is, well, pretty good might be an exaggeration. Also, it was like kind of a weird format where like the games basically dragged on forever. And I'll give you a hint. Basically, things that made it so you could alpha strike your opponent were very good because you got into a lot of board stalls. Like Dirge of Dread was good, which gives all of your creatures fear, but has cycling to give like one creature fear. So I don't know. Obviously, a good card to have access to in draft.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on Pyroclasm?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that'll be really impactful in Standard and Pioneer, and it's also just like I think the funniest time they could have reprinted it just because it's already like fresh in everyone's minds because it's seeing more play in Modern than I feel like it ever has right now because of the Boros energy deck.
Yep. I went through my box. I found 2 Ice Age Pyroclasms, so obviously I had to buy 2 more. My other
Yeah,
Pyroclasms did not match, and I'm just like,
I'm
what
certain I
happened?
have more than 4 Ice Age Pyroclasms because I
Yeah.
just have my my relatives' cards that played a lot of Ice Age.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like an old person said, obviously.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it'll be good to have access to that card, obviously. Um,
The Needlehead is interesting.
so red 2/2. It has first strike during your turn. When your opponent draws a card, deals 1 damage to them.
It's
Um,
not like outside of their draw step or anything. Like it always does the
yeah.
damage. Unfortunately, Phoenix is so good at killing this card that I can't imagine it's going to see play. It's also like not a card you want to play in a
Mm-hmm.
prowess deck. It might get added to cube because it's yet another card that it's like a wheel punisher / combo with Wheel of Fortune or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and in a red deck. 7's a lot of damage.
That is funny, yeah. But red for those decks is like a little bit much sometimes. Like I don't know.
Yeah, nowadays in Vintage Cube, any like double pip, same like even him the Torak just feels uncastable. You just want to be splashing as many colors as possible so often, I think.
So also before you came here, we were discussing the LSV like top 50 thing, and Mana Drain
Oh
has been
yeah.
bumped out because of I think exactly that concern, the double color nature of it.
Oh, certainly. I mean, Mana Drain is, I think, I could buy it being worse than Memory Lapse and Remand, I think, which are the ones he had up there.
Sure.
I have my own thoughts on that. It was kind of funny because earlier, I watch almost all of his videos, at least the draft portion. I don't always watch the gameplay.
Sure.
Because I'm trying to compare it to myself. Like I just pause it and think what I would pick. And I'm like usually on the same page with him for, most picks. And he had one recently in a team draft where he took Thoughtseize over Flash, which was really bizarre to me. That pack also had Atraxa and Hullbreacher, which he's way lower on Hullbreacher than I am. But I would pick like Atraxa over Thoughtseize, and I still would. But what's funny is it made sense that he didn't pick Flash because the pack had Atraxa and Vaultborn Tyrant, which makes the Flash much harder to combo with. That being said, if I was in that position, I would have picked Atraxa, but even though you're never going to get Flash. But yeah, he has Thoughtseize above. He has Thoughtseize much higher than I would. I think in Magic in general, I don't think that card is as powerful as other people.
That's fair. Anyways, Roller Crusher Ride. It's kind of a funny name for a card, and I guess like you're probably going to lose this thing in draft, but it's not relevant anywhere else, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. Seems hard to pull off.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like, say you have this Delirium deck that can pull this off. It is kind of perfect in that like it can kill. It plays to the board the turn you play it, and then lets you like untap and maybe combo kill your opponent with burn or something.
That is true. I'm imagining like a big red deck with this card, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like if you had 5 mana and Delirium and you played this, you could like kill 2 creatures. And once again, it's very similar to Chandra. Like it's just like a card that plays to the board the turn you play it and can untap and completely take over the game.
Yep. Also, fantastic name for the card. Like this is one of the cards I like appreciate more for the art / trope, and it doesn't like make me not want to look at it, I guess. Scorching Dragonfire, we already mentioned that. Good to have access to. Screaming Nemesis is the interesting card, I think.
Yeah, once again, the red decks in Standard are really moving towards a prowess deck now, which this doesn't really have a home for. But as far as like a more traditional mono red deck, especially because of Scorching Shot in Standard, it's kind of interesting because it can convert a Scorching Shot into the last 5 damage or something.
Oh, I see. Oh, I guess I'll read the card. 2 in a red, 3/3 haste. Whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. If a player is dealt damage this way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game. So it's Boros Reckoner meets Stigma Lasher, I guess is the best way of putting it.
Yeah, and then I guess also traditionally when Boros Reckoner was kind of dominant in Standard, it's because a lot of the best removal in Standard is like
damage based.
Like it's like if people are playing lots of Scorching Dragonfire and Torch the Tower, this is also just annoying to deal with.
Well, also, don't you remember the secret infinite lifeline
combo?
combo?
The Lucky Charms, Double Charm.
It's kind of funny because those cards were like okay by themselves, and then like someone was like, "Oh, what if we just gave it indestructible and lifelink and target it with something?"
Yeah.
Uh, Trial of Agony, no. Any thoughts on Untimely Malfunction?
Another card that I think is funny to know it exists,
Yep.
because there could be a deck with both artifacts and Time Warp. I don't think they'd ever reprint actual Time Warp for both fun concerns, and I don't think they
Yeah.
actually like that you can target players with Time Warp, but
No.
it is funny that there could exist cards that are so good to redirect that this is worth sideboarding, and the decks that play it could also have artifacts. Just something that like knows it exists. It probably will never come up, but it could.
Yeah, I think they're done with the days of 5 mana time warps. Like 6 is probably minimum. Probably
Yeah,
more
and
realistically, it would
even
be
then,
7. Yeah.
they haven't made one that I think targets a player in quite a long time.
I think it's literal time
Time
warp.
Walk, Time Warp.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not
Um,
even sure Time Walk says it. Doesn't know.
no, it doesn't. It just says take
Yeah.
another turn after this one.
Yeah.
Um, I need to read this card. Ultimate thrice called. Oh, that's. Wait. That's a weird card. All right.
Oh, you're okay. That one I'll get to. I want to a Violent Urge. I actually think might be good.
Okay. Let's read it real quick. Red instant. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end turn. If you have Delirium, it gets double strike instead.
So it's very much. I'm just thinking about like the days of Shadow of Temur Battle Rage that were playing Traverse anyways, and now in Modern there's also Nethergoyf and Dragon's Rage Channeler, and there's just it's really easy to get Delirium. And this being 1 mana instead of 2, and giving a power, which is effectively like a second power when you're going for lethal. I don't know. These types of decks aren't like at the top of the metagame in Modern right now, so it's hard to say this is going to change them. But like, you could interact with your opponent a bit on the first few turns and just go like Shadow plus this plus Bestow Detective's Phoenix attack for 20 on a turn, or do that with Psychic Frog too. Like,
fascinating, yeah.
Yeah, no trample sucks for sure. The decks now containing Detective's Phoenix make that a little less important, I guess.
Sure.
And just being 1 and getting in the 2 extra damage compared to Temur Battle Rage, it makes it somewhat appealing to me.
I've played a lot of one of Detective's Phoenix and Legacy like Delver style decks because it's just like pretty good to surveil into your graveyard and like kill your opponent with a Murktide later with it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I had not considered the Detective's Phoenix like Hollow 1 / Death Shadow, I guess. Sort of
Yeah,
deck,
and it's possible this is just in this weird category where it's not as consistent as Assault Strobe and it's not as reliable as Temur Battle Rage, that it's not going to work out. Like,
makes sense. Waltz of Rage reads like a broken draft card to me and doesn't do very much else. But...
yeah. The Alternate card has another card tied to it in the green section. I don't know if you knew this.
Okay, let's read Alternate first, which is 5 GG. Insect Beast Trample. When it becomes the target of spell or ability, opponent controls, draw a card. However, it has a more important mode, probably. 1 in a G, discard it. Return target land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So, what's the other card?
Say Its Name is the other card in green, so you don't have to scroll too far.
Its Name?
Say. S-A-Y. Say Its Name.
I was making a bad joke because you said say its name.
I got it.
Alright. Say its name. Mill 3 cards, then you may return a creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand.
So that's a sorcery speed grapple with the pass.
I see. Exile this card and 2 other cards named Say Its Name from your graveyard. Search your graveyard, hand, and special library for Altenac and put it on the battlefield. I see. So this is like a throwback to like the Unspeakable or Sign of Darkness, essentially.
Yeah, except the fact that the Alternate card has this buyout when it's in your hands to just give you a land, though that's not like there's not fetched lands really in Standard, or not good ones. But I don't know. It's like a thing that I don't think is good enough to see play, but it wouldn't be like totally shocking if a deck had it. The problem is Grapple with the Past. We recognize as a card that saw play, but being an instant is way better. And also being able to grab Emrakul the Promised End and Ishkanah were probably big reasons for that. Those were very powerful cards.
Emrakul is just so... I mean, It's funny of the resurgence of Emrakul the Promised Land, but obviously like there's a lot of reasons for that. But it's a really deeply unpleasant experience for everyone involved. I don't know. That's my rant about Emrakul.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing Infinite Emrakul in Modern right now.
Yeah,
It's very pleasant. I don't know. You just
well, it's pleasant. Okay,
yeah.
I will say I think like it's just getting Mindslavered basically every game is not that fun. Like, is
Yeah. You point out you have to do a ton of self mill. Well,
yeah.
I see your point. It's just that like if you wanted to play a Grapple of the Past anyways, and you put one Altanok in your deck in case it happened, it doesn't sound that unreasonable. But I think the line is that like you're not going to build your whole deck around it. It's just that Grapple with the Past might be a playable sorcery grapple might be a playable card, and then this 7-drop 9/9 or draw card basically also seems reasonable if you were doing that anyways.
Okay. Let's bring up Leyline of Mutation because I do remember at one point in history some people played Fist of Suns in Modern. Probably not good enough anymore, but 2 GG Leyline. You may pay Wooburg instead of paying mana cost for spells you cast. Probably not anymore. Like I think we're way past trying to cheat out like big things that way, but maybe.
Yeah, I mean it does. You can curve into it. The mana is maybe there in Standard, but yeah, I don't really see why you do this. It'd still just be Omniscience. Did we skip a bunch of cards? Sorry.
Oh, we skipped a few cards. I just
we
wanted.
started at the first green card. And
Oh, sorry. I went down to say its name and
yeah.
I got
yeah.
Balustrade Form. That's a reference. Oh wait, I guess we are in Like no, the Balustrade are part of Ravnica, but the Balustrade are.
Balustrade. I don't know if that's isn't a. I don't know what a Balustrade is. I'll be honest, but it sounds like it could just be a thing that exists in many planes.
Got it.
It's making me think of like a mezzanine or something. I don't know.
Okay.
A banister.
Oh, it's a Oh, I see. Okay. Break down the door, maybe somewhere. It's not that exciting.
Nah, that's too expensive. Who cares about the mode of like getting a 2/2 when you're boarding in a disenchant?
True. Cathartic Parting.
Yeah, it does two things at the same time, but being a sorcery, disenchant also kind of sucks. I mean, I know it can get rid of something indestructible, but
sure. Yeah. Does this Enduring do anything anywhere?
You'd need like.
It's Cryptolith, right?
It's like, yeah, and it's like it might be better than what like if this card was legal.
Oh, it's good
with was legal. It might have been better, but
yeah. But also the other thing about this is it enables your survivor like a lot easier, right?
It does enable your survivor. That's true.
Yeah, maybe. Like I don't know. This is the missing part of the Kona deck plus a
It's like there certainly needs to be a whole deck around it to build it, but like if you took just like the Team CFB black green Cryptolith rights or even the 4-color ones that emerged previously, maybe not the 4-color ones because of the double green, but like I could have seen this card being a better card, particularly because you could like sack it for value and keep it too.
Also you had Collected Company, so that was the other reason. But
I think to be fair, yeah, you did have Collected Company. That's true too. Also, just Nantuko Husk is like a really messed up card that they don't really want to print anymore, I think. That one's also not fun because what happens is your opponent attacks you with it, and then you look at their board and you realize you have to chump it like every turn.
Or you get drained out for 20 life for it.
Yeah.
Outside the combat zone, which is not particularly enjoyable, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. That Vitality might see play somewhere.
Yeah.
Wait, why does this... What happened to this card? I'm going to click on it. Okay. Oh. It's an uncommon... Okay, I don't think this is anything anywhere. This is like...
quite bad, yeah.
Alright. Haunwood Streaker, it's I guess one of the signature mythics.
Yeah, I don't think...
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead and read it. Sorry.
1 GG, 3/3 Beast Mutant. When it attacks, Manifest Dread. 1 reveal target face down permanent if it's... Oh, I see. So the joke is you put, like, uncastable cards in your deck and try to, like, flip them up with, like, this.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that crazy. You put 5 drops in your deck and get them for 2 mana, but it's a 3 mana 3/3 that you have to untap with. It's just pretty bad.
So we have Ledger Shredder, and now we have Hedge Shredder.
Yeah, the names are funny. Head Shredder is very funny because, I mean, obviously, like the synergy with milling 2 cards when it attacks works with the rest of the text box of the cards. But this card, if it sees play to me, I think it's going to involve weird infinite combos because it's not limited on once per turn. For example, in Modern, and I don't think this is good enough for Modern, but if you have Hedron Crab, you could like potentially mill your whole deck and put Valakutsa Mountains into play.
Oh, that's very funny. I was trying to figure out what you were saying, and I'm like, wait, oh, landfall mill. Oh, wait, I see. That's
Yeah, but
very
then it's just funny because like
yeah.
the first deck idea I have with it has Hedron Crab, and this is a 0 power creature, and this is a vehicle with crew on that's a 5/5 that you would just like. The two halves of this card are very at odds.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's also maybe unique with Greasefang, but I don't know if they really need something that's like the Essica's Chariot's just like the perfect like mid-rangey
Yeah.
Greasefang card that also is a very powerful hit off Greasefang, and this is not a very powerful thing to return with Greasefang. Like, so yeah, I don't.
Definitely agree with you.
If you play a Surveil Land and hit a Surveil Land and keep hitting Surveil Lands, you could keep going. Like that's kind of funny, but
wait, so this basically removed all of the gates that said like once per turn on it, right?
yeah, like it has the potential to mill your whole deck in weird contexts, or maybe there's some infinite loop where lands skip back onto the bottom or top of your deck from your graveyard. But
That's very funny. I feel like they used to be more careful about this stuff, and then they just decided to remove all of the like safety valves.
yeah,
Right?
I feel like once you make a card 4 mana and requires other things to combo with, it's like who
Sure.
cares? Like
Yeah.
it's like a 3-card combo, and this is a 4 mana sorcery with whatever you're talking about.
Sure.
I mean, Hedron Crab I think is going to be the cleanest it ever gets
Sure.
because that's a 2-card combo, but you still need a land drop.
Yep, that's fair.
And your deck would have to be like 36 lands or something probably to be consistent. I don't know.
And you're paying an 0/3 and like this unplayable like 4 mana vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's just like whatever. Dude, have fun. If you kill me with
Yeah.
it, that's fine. You deserve it.
Yeah.
Now, House Cartographer, I was thinking about this maybe somewhere, but
No, yeah, land in the hand is just not even.
Sure.
I guess. Upside.
I guess this is the Quandrix Apprentice thing again, where people were excited about it, but it didn't actually do very much, right?
Yeah.
All right.
This focus is funny. I don't know if it goes in the amulet box potentially. I don't know. It's like
any green creature that does something, maybe in the amulet box.
Like a main deckable Explorer that's kind of crappy, but also lets you kill things.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth having one somewhere in your box. It's a G1/2. You can pay 2 to sack it, choose one, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or explore. Or I guess it's tapped instead of untapped, but whatever.
Yeah, it's like I guess there's more and more issues. Taps may be good though.
Oh
right,
yeah.
Talked about Kona and Leyline at least already.
Manifest Dread, literally Manifest Dread, like does what it says intended. I kind of enjoyed that just for the like fear gives enchanted creature fear or whatever,
Yeah.
What is this? Oh god, I haven't read this card.
The Fly Trap?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't actually do that much.
Well, it's a good thing where I really doubt in Standard you're going to have Delirium on turn 3 and creatures. But if there was just a bunch of Satyr Wayfinders in Standard, and on turn 3 you played this and attacked for 3 with your Satyr Wayfinder, and this was threatening, like that would be powerful. But there's not Baubles and Street Wraiths in Standard, so I just don't think that's happening in Fetch Lands.
Yep.
And they're not in Pioneer either. Like, and in Modern, this clearly isn't powerful enough. But like, it's just funny because all these Delirium cards, a lot of them are like, if they worked on curve perfectly, they would be pretty powerful. But because you have to work for it, I just don't think that's gonna work out.
Yep. I do want to call it Overgrown Zealot for a few reasons. I guess I'll read it real quick. 1 in G04, tap for 1 mana of any color. Tap, add 2 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to turn permanents face up. Well, so there's actually like a bunch of like face down creature things. There's Manifest Dread, obviously. There's Disguise from MKM.
Yep.
Are those the only 2? I thought there was one more, but
yeah, it doesn't count as turning them face up when you like transform them, right? Like from Marching Machine. So that doesn't work.
No, that's his transform. But I guess like You can use it with Cryptic Code to like turn those creatures up, or the disguise morphs from.
Right.
So maybe somewhere, but probably not. Anyways, the Green Overlord. I guess we talked about it enough,
The good
but
one. Yeah.
yeah, the
But
good one.
just for reference, like it's kind of boringly set up to work perfectly with Up the Beanstalk and Leyline Binding.
Yep.
And even Sunfall, because you just get to like suspend a large creature that doesn't die to Sunfall while it's suspended.
Oh, Cloak also from MKM. That's the one I was thinking of, where you don't know if it's actually a creature or not.
Okay.
Got it. Oh, I guess that's off Cryptic Code. It cloaked them instead of disguise them.
This Patchwork Beastie card in the category of cards I'm talking about, where maybe you can curve out and have Delirium at the same time. But
oh, that's the joke. Bestie Beastie? Yeah, that's the joke, I guess. Huh. It doesn't know it isn't real. That's a funny flavor text.
yeah.
So it's a G3/3 at the beginning of your upkeep. You may mill a card. It can't attack or block unless if you have Delirium. So, yeah, maybe somewhere like. I guess people will try to build Delirium decks, right? But I feel like without Satyr Wayfinder or Vessel of Nascency, like those cards were the good ones at enabling Delirium way back when.
Yeah, and also they're just like, it's weird to me that they'd put like Leyline in the Void or whatever. It's just like you just, if these decks were good, they just can't even be that good.
You just get immediately destroyed. People are like, you're trying to Delirium. All right, 4 Leylines in, you'll never have Delirium.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you. Talked about say its name. The Forest Cycler. That is big, but, you know, that doesn't solve Living End's issues, unfortunately.
No, yeah.
Oh my god, I just read Twitching Doll. That kind of terrifies me. But, okay, I guess I'll read it. It's kind of an amusing card for, like, the rampy nature of it. It's a 1 in a green 2/2. Spider Toy, artifact creature. Tap, add 1 mana of any color, put a Nest counter on it, and then the joke is you can tap sack it and make a 2/2 green spider creature token for each counter on Twitching Doll, which I guess is like the spiders are growing inside this doll or whatever. Kind of terrifying to look at.
Probably won't see play, but the spiders having reach is interesting. Being a nest token or nest counter means you can't really get like counters on it in a different way.
Only proliferate, probably?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I guess, technically a mechanic in Phyrexia
Probably,
OOB1. But
standard, yeah.
Yeah. Tyver the Pummeler. What does this card do? 1 3/3, tap another top creature you control. Oh, another way to get survival, like for your.
Okay. Sure.
I was just reading it.
Yeah.
It gains indestructible until end turn. Tap it. 3 creatures you control get +X until end turn X's. Okay, so you just insta died this thing limited. Great. Got it.
Yeah. You can't attack and do it. It's like Moat also.
Yeah, so basically, I think for Constructed, just a Survivor, like, enabler, but I guess, like, theoretically, you could be, like, a Stompy deck and it would be okay, right?
Yeah. Oh, someone in chat pointed out that the Twitching Doll actually doesn't reference nest counters. You could put any counters on it and get spiders.
Oh. Wait, that's super weird, right?
Yeah. No,
Why?
good point. I mean, not that anything jumps to mind, but I think this card... Getting a 2/2 reach is a pretty powerful thing. Like, that's not nothing. Being at sorcery speed kind of sucks, but...
Is it Innkeeper's Talent again?
Yeah.
It's like, always Innkeeper's Talent?
It's always Innkeeper's Talent, but yeah, that doesn't, like, read as good enough to me, but it certainly makes it something that could happen.
Yeah. Good to know about. So this is a regrowth that Manifest Dread 2. Probably not, but... maybe.
Yes, an artifact creature for modular. That's cool.
Interesting. Cauldron. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Huh. Didn't think about that, but I guess that
could... okay. There's some things going on. That's fair.
Wow, the brewers have already brewed. We're just here, like, learning about it on the fly. Kind of funny. Alright, Under the Skin. Alright, I'll shout out Valgoloth's Onslaught. Not because I think it's particularly good, but there's this misconception between the difference between exponential and quadratic. This is literally my rant again. This is literal quadratic growth. And you're also like you're paying like linear mana, but mana's not really linear, honestly, like
Yeah.
so it's kind of funny, like I would say mana's like in between like linear and quadratic. It's kind of hard to quantify, but and whereas like this actually does like the amount of like power and toughness you get is literal quadratic. So, you know, also have fun losing that thing limited is what I would say, because you will die to this thing cast for like a reasonable amount.
So yeah, I'm thinking if they spent 5 mana on it, they're gonna get 2/4/4s for 5 mana, so that's already annoying. And then if they spend 7 mana on it, which is very achievable, like something worth waiting for. Like 2/4/4s is when you're like, oh, I'm losing on board. I need 2/4/4s, and like 7 mana is 3 5/5s.
Yep.
And then that's just like the goal, I assume, is to get to 7 mana, but you have like this buyout of 2/4/4s for 5.
Yeah, so the easy way to see it's exponential is you pay X mana, but you get X plus 1 squared, the quantity squared, minus 1 power and toughness.
Okay.
Um, Also known as X squared plus 2X, because that's actually how many counters you get, but, you know, it's kind of funny. Yep.
This room is interesting.
Yeah, so someone messaged me it, and their caption was, "Is this a lands card?" And I'm like, I don't think so, but it's kind of close, which is kind of the funny part.
The applications in constructed are probably not going to appear. I suppose I don't think Crucible of Worlds is legal in Pioneer, right? I mean, Ramenup is, but
no, it's
there's not like particularly good things to do with it. I mean, those
No.
effects right now mostly have a big appeal in Cube, and it's like, is this card better than Crucible of Worlds because it's so rare that you would play Crucible in a deck that's not green? And that's not entirely true, obviously, because it can just combo Strip Mine, but
yeah.
You also can splash very easily.
Well, actually, one secretly appealing thing about this is like you're dredging loam a bunch. You mill a bunch of things in your graveyard that you would like to get back at some point, but it's not that easy for that deck to do that. So like,
Yeah,
it's not like the second half is like 0 because you can get all of your explorations back or whatever, right? I will probably try this. Sure. I'll get one for the box. You know, it's for the box. My suspicion is it's worse than Crucible because Crucible pumps all of your Saga tokens, but that's like unrelated. I guess.
Yeah, I assume I'm supposed to put this in Vintage Cube, but it's not even going to be that good. Like, those effects are already kind of fringe and mostly just making Strip Mine one of the top. Like, Strip Mine's already amazing, obviously, but then the fact that you can first pick a Strip Mine and combo with it is what makes it like such a high pick.
Yeah, I agree. It's just it is like kind of a funny design because it's like, I don't know. Do the two things really like relate to each other? I guess they kind of do, but not really. Like, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's repeatable unless you obviously you can bounce it. But
no, there. Okay, well, we'll get to this later. There are things that actually relock the rooms.
Okay. Also, what happens if you flicker a room? What does it come back as?
Oh god. I'm sure it's addressed in the FAQ, and I haven't read the FAQ yet.
I'm curious. Yeah, if you
I don't know.
Exiled the room and returned to Ophelia or whatever, both rooms locked, I could believe it.
Okay. Then you have to pay the cost to unlock each of them one by one. Okay, got it. That makes the most sense, but who knows how they would like.
Yeah, but repeating Yoggle is not even that good because all your cards get exiled. I mean, it's just so much mana. It's like.
It's a 5 mana Yawgmoth Swell, but it's also attached to something that lets you hit a land every turn, so that's like why it sort of makes sense. But yeah, I agree with you. This doesn't do anything. This is a baseball bat that you whack people with, but doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
Does this do anything?
It's a fight spell for limited.
Yeah.
A bite spell.
A bite spell. Does this do anything? No. This is spider spawning, right? Well, except it counts card types instead of number of creatures.
Yeah, it's 6 mana too. Yeah, I mean, doesn't really matter for constructed.
I've heard talk of Disturbing Mirth, so I guess we'll read the card real quick. Black red enchantment, really scary art. Don't love
Yeah,
it.
I was gonna mention. I think this is the one I don't like the most because for me, I actually think it's just like a thing with surgery and brains. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. So when it enters, you may sacrifice another enchantment creature. If you do, draw 2 cards. When you sacrifice this, manifest dread. So like, I don't know why people are so high on it because I feel like you have to do a lot of work. But maybe you can see something.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm waiting. I'm like looking for it, hoping it also says or discard a card. You know, like the front half of this is like pretty high
Yeah,
cost. You know,
yeah.
like to play a card like this is just worse than Deadly Dispute or whatever. I feel like it.
Yeah, it's 2 mana do nothing the first time, and then the second
Yeah, and
time,
it's
like,
sorcery speed to
yeah.
have the cost of like sacking creatures just like so bad. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it doesn't seem very like cast. Like the first part of it just seems so hard to make into anything. Even though
Mm-hmm.
it's like cool with bargain and there's lots of good things that help you sack enchantments now, but what the card does before you sack it is like terrible.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, it doesn't do anything. Like, it's
Yeah.
just it's like hatching plans, right?
Yeah.
All right. Drag to the Roots, maybe something somewhere. You would have to be a Delirium deck. You know,
Yeah.
not particularly interesting. I am so confused. Like, why? Okay, why would you name a card Fear of Infinity? But I don't know. That I don't think people are really scared of Infinity.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe.
Does this do anything? 1 blue black, 2/2 flying lifelink, can't block. Oh, I see. It's like a recursive threat.
Yeah,
Hence
it
the
doesn't seem like it's
Infinity.
gonna matter in constructed.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of funny. Like it like the name ties in with the mechanic, but
Oh.
that's it.
Okay, so I mean I want to look at both these blue white cards together because there's a blue
Yeah.
enchantress
Uh huh.
and then
Oh, I
there's
see.
just a reprint, except it's a 2/3 this time. That's
And
nice.
also unlock costs.
Yeah.
Also cost
And
one less.
that might, yeah, I still haven't seen any rooms I really care to play, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know, like the 1 mana unsummon gets slightly more appealing or whatever when the
Mm-hmm.
ETB of the unsummon is granting you value or drawing you a
Mm-hmm.
card or something.
So yeah,
The
maybe
other one that's making the gremlins might not matter because it's not an
sure.
enchantment itself and it's
Mm-hmm.
just like kind of a crappy enchantment payoff, but there might be like a blue white enchantments deck, not with, you know, rather than the one I thought where Calyx was the prize. Maybe it's just blue white.
And you get caretaker's talent. Although I guess you get caretaker's talent no matter what if you really want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it. I guess I'll see if anyone actually comes up with it at some point. But wait, you can sack your room to dome your opponents for 2. What the?
Yeah.
What a
It's
weird
funny.
card. This is a card that I also really dislike the art of, but
Yeah, me too.
but also it is kind of an interesting card, like in terms of like what it does. Like, so the Jolly Balloon Man, 1 white red, haste, 1 tap, create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control, except it's a 1/1 red balloon creature. In addition to its other colors and types, and has flying and haste, sack it at the beginning of events up, activate only as a sorcery. So obviously throwbacks to the flip side of Reflection of Kiki Jiki, right?
Yeah. Having haste makes this maybe reasonable, but there's still a lot of setup
Mm-hmm.
involved.
Yeah, I mean, the question is like, what kind of
Sorcery
Boros
only
deck?
also.
We're
Yeah.
also filling our Boros deck with like value cards instead of like trying to kill them. It's kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know. Seems like a hard sell, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's seen somewhere. Just not very clear what it does. Kaito Bane of Nightmares. Has there been a ninjutsu planeswalker before?
No. I don't think there's been a non-creature ninjutsu card before.
Okay, only Commander Ninjutsu from
Yeah.
Yuriko, right? Okay.
Yeah, but that still was a creature. Yeah.
Yep. So this is a 2 blue black legendary planeswalker Kaito. It actually has ninjutsu, 1 blue black. During your turn, as long as Kaito has one or more loyalty counters on him, he's a 3/4 ninja creature and has hexproof. +1, you get an emblem with ninjas you control, get +1/+1. 0, surveil 2, then draw a card for each opponent who has lost life this turn. -2, tap target creature, put 2 stun counters on this. Seems sort of appealing for the blue-black decks that people have been playing in Standard, but I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, it might be powerful enough on rate. I have looked at the ninjas in Standard. There's really not many. There's another one, I guess, on this screen.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at them in Pioneer right now, and there's at least a little more. Because, I mean, the emblem, it's, like, pretty powerful if it works. I haven't looked at, like, changelings either. But, I mean, even, let's say your deck has no other ninjas. It's just, like, you'll probably ninjutsu this in, pick up your flying thing in your Gix-type deck as your Spyglass Siren's the perfect card, I guess, or your Mockingbird. And then you'll probably surveil 2 and draw a card right away. Or if your opponent has a creature, you could tap it and put stun counters. I mean, it's 4 loyalty. I mean, it reads as kind of perfect for the Gix deck, because then +1ing to, like, give it and your other Kaitos a permanent +1/+1 is, like, pretty good. Like, that's large. That's not, like, unreasonable. All the abilities seem good. If, let's say, you're behind and, like, you can't ninjutsu it, like, you still could play it and tap something and try to hit them. Like, I guess the problem is if you're really far behind, you're getting, like, no cards out of this.
But I don't think the blue-black decks in Standard get that far behind. I think they only get, like, slightly behind sometimes.
Yeah, the blue-black decks also, they're really trying to, like, snowball anyways, and this doesn't seem like it's so, like, it's really good at snowballing, and you could play it if you were behind, you could, like, play it, tap their guy. Obviously, you're so far behind that wouldn't be good. But, like, if they have one guy and you have none, you, like, play it, tap their guy, and the next turn you could maybe, like, try to attack with Restless Reef or something. Or I guess it just gets you attack, right? And then it attacking, you know, if they can't block the 3/4, then it could draw a card post-combat.
Yeah, I think this, like, solves my issue with kind of original Kaito, which was... Original Kaito kind of, like, took a long time to really get going, whereas this one's a lot faster about it.
The 3-mana one?
Yeah. But maybe...
I love the 3-mana one. It's one of my favorite cards.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I don't know. Also, hexproof is worth a lot,
very,
I think.
Very important, yeah, to not just open it up to removal. It's not... It can be blocked, and it doesn't say damage isn't prevented, right? So it is, like... Chump blocking this matters. Chump blocking it is like you sack your creature to, like, deal damage equal to the loyalty, and then also it wants you to lose life because then you draw a card. Like, if this card sees play, then chump blocking it will be, like, a very common play pattern.
Yep. I think that's, like, very non-intuitive because I don't think we've had a lot of planeswalkers that turn to creatures that don't have the damage prevented to it.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. This one's in Japanese, but it's probably better to read it. So this is the girl that makes the contract with Vasagoth.
Okay, got it.
So I guess her name is Marina Vendrell. She also has the Grimoire, which I guess she's a warlock. Okay. So when it comes into play, reveal the top 7 cards of your library. Put all enchantment cards from among them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Tap, lock or unlock a door of target room you control, activate only as a sorcery. So this is how you can, like, you can start repeating the effects if you really want to.
Yeah. I mean, if this card sees play, I think it might not even be with rooms. It's just because it's a giant goblin ringleader for enchantments.
It's Torsten for enchantments.
Yeah, but that's not even very good. But yeah.
It's also super hard to cast, and it's like a 5-mana 3/5. So it's I don't know.
Being a 5-mana 3/5 is so weird for Wooburg. They're just, like, making it seem like it's so easy to get that. Which it is in fake formats, but
yeah. So this is Nashi. This is a ninja. Maybe it does something.
Notably, I don't believe... Oh, no, the first Nashi is a ninja. The one from Aftermath is not, that I considered playing in Slogurk, and this one is again.
So this is Nashi, Searcher in the Dark, 2/2 Menace. When it deals damage to a player, you mill that many cards. You may put any number of legendary and special or enchantment cards from among them in your hand. If you put no cards in this hand this way... I don't know. I guess if you really want to play more ninjas, then this is the way to do it. What's the other Nashi? Aftermath. Is this the Aftermath one?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Sultai? Yeah, never mind. I don't...
Yeah, I have played one of it in Slogurk when I was
Yeah.
testing for the PT, but they can cast legends from your graveyard.
Okay, so Nico, is this a throw? Was there another Nico before?
Nico is a planeswalker in Kaldheim that when it entered made X shard tokens. It
And you
cost
could
X to
pay.
play.
Yeah. Now I remember. So this is the throwback to that Nico, right?
Yes, this is the same
Okay.
character, assumedly lost their spark like all these other planeswalkers. I
So
don't know why they're on this plane.
2 white blue. When it comes to make 2 shards, which is they're similar to clues except you scry one before you draw. And
yeah, better ETB better than ever when I'm talking about like that when there's the Enchantress and the 1-drop that put counters.
So 2 tap, exile target non-military creature you control. Shards you control become copies of it until begin. Oh, I see. So I guess if you have like some enormous creature, you can like alpha your opponent with the shards or something like that.
Yeah, or pop off with your. Oh, but it exiles the one, so that's weird.
Well,
because like you're going down.
Oh well, it's presumably
it comes back.
Yeah, you're like flickering to save it from removal or something.
But like assumedly, I mean, your deck has no other shards except for this, so you play this and you get to untap with it. Like instead of drawing a card, you could turn both your shards into one of your creature, but then you don't have that creature for the turn. You know, like so it's mostly just like copying that creature.
Yep. I don't know. Probably not anything, but maybe.
If there's a blue-white Enchantress deck, this is a 4-drop that gives you 2 triggers of the Enchantress. That's what I'm looking at it for.
Yeah, seems nice there. Oh, then I guess you could like copy your Enchantress and really like go ham if you really want to. But that's probably unnecessary by that point. The Bookworm's nothing. Now, Pure Past the Veil, like obviously a very all-in card, but does it do anything?
Yeah, I mean, very funny because also like the cards you discard count towards X.
Yep.
So,
but this brings up the question of like, why did they put Leyline into standard? Because if someone's just trying to build a Pure Past the Veil deck, well, this like completely hoses them. It's like very baffling.
It also can only be like so good. Like
it's not even great. I think you would rather just not spend mana on this type of effect, like generally speaking. But kind of funny.
It's like a red-green. Yeah, it's like I'm just thinking if you're like Hellbent, so this could be the only instant in your deck. It always counts itself.
Sure.
You maybe draw like 4 cards off this, but like I don't know if like a setup 4 mana, draw 4 or 5 cards, or maybe 3 cards because you discarded something is like what a red-green deck wants at all.
I think very few decks want that type of card nowadays, honestly, because like it's so much easier to get card advantage with things that like actually affect the board, right?
Yeah.
This room is the one room I think maybe has potential somewhere.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't kill the Enchantress. That's nice. The 3 mana 2/3 flash, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah. So it's restricted office / lecture hall. I guess this is like a university somewhere on this plane.
Sure. I'm also not sure that there's like a...
Or is this just inside
like the types of board stalls in Standard? I'm trying to think, because people used to play Dusk Dawn.
Yeah, but that was
similar to the first mode of this, but it's just like... what are we killing with this in Standard? Like, there's a lot of small creatures that are quite good. And the decks that play big creatures aren't playing like a lot of big creatures. I mean, if you're the Enchantress deck and you play this and you just kill their one guy and get all your Enchantress triggers, that's not the worst. But also, the 7 mana half's terrible.
I guess this is like more privileged positions for people to put into their deck in whatever format.
Commander, Yep.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to see it, but I'm not high on it either. All right. I guess we should talk about Rip Spawn Hunter real quick. 2 green white 4/4 has survival, so if it's tapped at the beginning of your second main phase, reveal X cards where X top cards of your library where X is its power. Put any number of creature and special war vehicle cards with different powers among them into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. I'm not high on this, but does this do anything anywhere?
No, working hard just to draw cards is just not a thing.
Yeah.
Why would you work hard just to draw some cards. It needs to cheat things into play. The only one that's been appealing to me so far is the thing that can cheat something into play. It's a legend again, at least, for Relic of Legends, so maybe there's that.
Yeah, but probably not.
Yeah.
Rite of the Moth. I feel like this is a throwback to some horror movie that I don't know. I'm sure Dave Long will tell me all of them because Dave loves horror movies and loves this set. So I predict I'll be learning about what each of these cards is referring to.
Hey, there's a black-white deck that put Atraxa into its graveyard. I could see this seeing play. It's pretty... But right now, that's not a thing, as far as I know.
Also, I like how the casting costs are asymmetrical. It's 1 white, black on the front side.
Yeah.
But 3 white, black on the back side. Not that I think matters too much, because I think the mana is sufficient to like do whatever you want. And also, by the time you get to 6, you're way more likely to have like...
Yeah, and if you're milling stuff over, you could flash this back. But obviously, 6 mana to flash back is not nearly as cool as like the Unburial Rites 4. So it's not like you're doing something as powerful. But I like it as far as redundancy. Like versus a deck with counter spells, you put this in your deck probably more intending on casting it for 4 mana, but like you can threaten to do stuff with your 6 mana later. But I just don't think it does a home. Particularly because Reenact the Crime is just like a card that's going to be like, I can win this turn in this type of deck.
Yep. That is probably nothing. Like,
you can deal a bunch of damage.
Yeah, I just hate, like, they're probably never going to do this, but paying mana to sacrifice stuff sucks so much. It's just so, like, atrocious and like, I guess I've been spoiled forever with like Nantuko Husk and like Viscera's here or whatever, but...
Is this missing the Roaring Furnace Room card? I think I know which card you're talking about, and the answer is maybe yes, because I haven't seen it yet. We'll see if it's there. It's also a red-blue room split card with the...
Is it
if
this
it's called
one?
Roaring Furnace, no, because it's 2 mana on the front half.
Let me see.
It's also the better room. Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's what it's called.
Oh.
Yeah, okay.
Wait, why is it here, but not in the actual...
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's look at this real quick. When you unlock this door... Okay, so it's like sudden impact to a creature. So it's 1 in a red...
Fire's a Victory is like the card it's competing with, because that card's also in Standard.
Interesting, yeah. So 1 in a red... When you unlock this door, this room deals damage equal to the number of cards in your hand to target creature and opponent controls. Like you said, Fires has seen play. And the backside is, it turns into an enchantment that says you have no maximum hand size. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty powerful. It's kind of going to be hard to play out. I mean, also, like, you know, you say the backside, but you can be in lots of spots where... Especially because you might be low on cards in hand. The front, the red half doesn't do anything, but you can pay the blue half, and then next turn have the ability to maybe kill something that they played to the board on their turn.
Interesting. I wonder why that didn't show up on the normal thing, but...
Yeah, it's only maybe because it only has this extended art and it's by collector number or something. Maybe it's going to show up at the end. Cause...
No, but... I guess... I'm checking real quick.
Yeah, they probably have it down here because they've only... I think you passed by it.
Oh, probably.
All the Pokemon cards are here.
Oh, yeah, it actually was
It's just because they haven't spoiled, so that's kind of awkward because I'm curious if that's the case for other cards. Okay.
Okay.
Anyways.
So, yeah, that card seems pretty good. Is this anything? Smoky Alone? Probably not. Most of the rooms are so mediocre.
Yeah.
Like, I guess my question is, are they planning on revisiting this mechanic in the future?
Yeah.
Is the real question. Because if that's the case, then it's more interesting. Undead Sprinter, I didn't see this card too. Black-red 2/2 Trample Haste. You may cast it, Undead Sprinter, from your graveyard if a non-zombie creature died this turn. If you do Undead Sprinter, and just a +1 encounter on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do we have, like, a sack outlet in Standard that's good that I'm forgetting about? There might be. There's Barto.
Yeah.
Those name.
Well, it has like 4 different names. Right?
Yeah. Call him Barto for the One Piece fans.
I don't know, but like sacking it itself doesn't work because you have to do non-zombie, obviously. But I don't know. That is very weird. Like trying to fix Gravecrawler repeatedly is very strange to me. But I don't know. Maybe
I was also working out. It's like a looks
Yeah.
like yeah, kind of an interesting reference.
It's some movie, I guess, or something. I don't know.
Well, it kind of looks like Michael Jackson's outfit in Thriller to some extent. Not the colors, but like
Oh,
the
sure.
types of clothes.
Yeah. All right. Oh, does this spider do anything? No, not really.
Um, it's the
I,
same thing where it's just like
I guess it's good with Ishkana if you somehow have Ishkana in the same deck.
yeah, and Death Touch. They have flying at Death Touch. But then like if they just kill this, the flying things are not like they'll gain life. I mean, this is like more along the lines of reasonable, especially because 4 is kind of like because that's how Ishkana worked, right? Is
Yeah.
like you spent your first early turns just milling yourself and maybe ramping a little, and then you played Ishkana and it made up for all that.
Then you played Emrakul and then the game was over.
Yeah, but this is like
Yeah, I see. Sorry, are you still here?
yeah. Sorry,
Okay. Okay.
reading heard the noise.
Yeah, the noise.
The Wildfire Wicker Folk is cool just because it's like not the worst on rate without
Yeah.
Delirium on turn 2, and then because it's an artifact creature, it's helping you. So like it's like a stronger top deck later in the game, or maybe gets turned online. But
That's interesting.
I'm not that excited about it.
I actually did not read Victor, really. But
Yeah, I mean, it does things when you have a lot of enchantments enter, but it's not even that good.
yeah.
It surveils 2, then makes them discard, then can reanimate something.
Yep. Maybe, I don't know. What does Winter do? Miss Anthrop Guide. This reads like a commander card to me that I don't want to put into a constructed deck.
Yeah,
But
you know
maybe
what's
I'm
really
wrong.
funny is there's a card in the black. If you scroll to black really quick, it's near the end because it starts with winter.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's called Winter's Intervention, but like it's not talking about the season. It's talking about a person named Winter.
Ah, I see.
Which is not intuitive if you didn't
I see.
pay attention to
So,
the set. Like,
can we trust Winter, or can we trust
yeah,
the creature chasing us? And the Wanderer is talking about it. It's just
yeah,
Nico talking to the Wanderer.
yeah.
I would probably trust random guy instead of like clearly murderous creature chasing me, but I don't know. That's up to them. All right, I will talk about Zimone real quick because the only thing I want to say about Zimone is A, like why, who is this for? I guess like maybe me and Ross. B, why did they stop at 31? I don't know. There was like it looks to me like you can fit in like
Oh,
2 more numbers. Like
I have a joke about that. It's no commander player has ever put 37 lands in their deck, so it doesn't matter.
oh, okay, but
That's too many.
what like I don't know. Okay, I guess that is a funny joke, but and C, I
36
can't
tops.
I can't wait for someone to like make a large number of lands and ask the judge. It's like, is this arbitrary like 10-digit number of prime?
That's true. We have the lands token guy in the same set.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm just like, this is so unnecessary. Like, joking aside, interesting things about this is so when you cast it, if you somehow cast on turn 2, say off Llanowar Elves, which might come out,
It works. Yep.
you get a 2/2, then you get to hit them, then you play another land, and you go to your end step, you replace it with a 3/3. So basically, yeah, it'll work
Yeah,
out.
the token being legendary and replacing instead of just adding to your board, it seems unnecessarily like you're just being too scared. I don't know. It's just like
Well,
it's a
see,
1/1. They can kill the 1/1, and you can
well,
like
they wanted to name it something funny and cutesy as like Primo the Indivisible.
yeah, and like especially because it's an end step trigger. So like if this was like a card that saw a lot of play in standard or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
your opponent has opportunities to kill it, and I just don't think it would risk like snowballing out of control.
Also, my last
But
rant about this is indivisible is inaccurate because you can still fucking divide it by itself. Like this is not actually how words work in mathematics.
and then also I guess lastly, Two Legends is nice with Relic of Legends, I guess, but a Relic of
Oh,
Legends deck
sure.
is kind of awkward with this card because I'm not sure you're going to hit your land drops that much, especially now that you play way less lands because the channel lands all rotated.
Yep, agree with you. So that's all of the gold cards. Let's see. Attack in the box, boring. Bear trap,
Yeah.
boring. Conducive machete. I guess like this is technically a creature in disguise, but probably not. Now, I guess Dissection Tools is a lot closer to Batterskull than a lot of other cards, but...
Yeah, but it just doesn't have that level of resiliency that Batterskull has. You know,
Right.
if you played this and they just kill the creature,
Mm-hmm.
then it's in fact really hard to get back online again, unless you were like far ahead with a lot of creatures. You know what I mean? Like
The only way I'm thinking of is Flicker Wisp again, but you know that's just Flicker
well, I
Wisp.
mean, just because it's a quick sack of creature. I just mean like you can't even like move it around easily.
Yeah.
It like
oh, I see.
Like yeah, it's not.
Oh yeah, someone did post like the twin prime. Oh, someone posted a question that if you really understood mathematics was trying to prove something that cannot be proven with the current tools we have. So that in terms of magic, so it was kind of funny, but I don't really want to go into that, obviously. Ghost Vacuum is the card you were referring to. It's just like
Yeah, and
is this the best Relic of Progenitus ever? I guess like no, if you want the like actual buyout of exiling everything.
yeah, but the fact that you get to target the cards means it's also
Yeah.
like a little more unique. Like
Yep.
I could see this seeing play in many formats, particularly because as the format gets older, Urza Saga is a card you're allowed to play with.
Well, only one in Vintage now. Only one in Vintage now.
And the upside is like also this is a card that can like win the game versus decks.
Yeah, it's like, wait. Oh my! I see. So if you like exile with your Gristlebrand, you can just like make a 1/1 Gristlebrand.
Yeah, like, or just a bunch of 1/1 flyings, not even particularly good ones, right?
Yeah, but also I'm just thinking about 1/1 Gristlebrand, which is probably 90% of what you need from Gristlebrand, right?
Yeah, but if you like boarded the Inverse Hollow one or whatever, like
Sure. Yeah.
you just get a bunch of 1/1s that are basically textless, but they still just like.
Mm-hmm.
People suggested putting this in Tree. Is Tree the name of the red-black Cauldron deck?
Yep.
Is that what Tree means?
Yep. Tree of Perdition is the...
Oh, because they want to make a 1/1 Tree. Yeah, that's very slow. I mean, I would not consider using this card for the 6-mana part. I'm saying that you can side it in, and it's graveyard hate against your opponent, and then instead of cycling like Relic when you're done hosing their graveyard, you can make a bunch of 1/1 flyings and maybe win that way.
Yep.
Or 1/1 flying Atraxa or something like that.
Yep. Anyways, the short answer is great card, and don't be surprised to use the 6-mana mode to win the game.
Yeah, and it's also like it's not obviously better than Relic or Soul Guide Lantern either. Like it does do a worse job at certain things than those cards.
Specifically if you're playing against like a super fast like dredge deck, like I think specifically Bazaar Baghdad comes to mind. This card is not good enough versus Bazaar Baghdad, whereas like Soul Guide
someone
and
trying
Relic,
to reanimate a single thing.
Yes, then it's fantastic. Yeah. But if they're doing the dredge like the turbo dredge thing, this is probably going to be too slow for that.
Yeah. Well, then also, so you do mention like, would you believe people suggest put this Tree? Like, I guess if you're playing that deck, this is an appealing sideboard card, like, or the mirrors or things like that. You know, when it comes up, like, I wouldn't build around it in your main deck. That seems like nonsense to me. But if it is hosing your opponent and then doing something else, that's pretty nice.
Yep. We're gonna call it Haunted Screen because of the joke you pointed out in one of the other chats we're in, which is, color TV ain't free, y'all. You got to pay life for color TV. Black and white TV is
also
free.
Like. That's just like not even true. Like that's just such a joke that like the majority of people alive today don't even like understand. Like
yes, it's very 70s, 80s.
Yeah, like.
I also think it's funny that you can only activate this 7-mana ability once, but I guess like they really didn't want people to die to like 21s in limited. But I don't even think it would really matter very much if it didn't have that line of text. But
well, it's more flavorful. Like it becomes a ghost once, right? Like it's not.
Awesome. Can I ask you why Keys to the House only lets you lock or unlock a door once instead of multiple times? makes no sense to me.
Yeah, because if it said key to the house, that would make sense. Like, it only works on one
Well,
thing. But
no, but like, oh, I see.
well, the lock or
Sure.
unlock is interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, it's not. Yeah,
it's weird.
here's a card people are talking about that I don't think is that good at all, but
No,
is
it.
Marvin.
I also don't understand the obsession with this card, but it does like lead to some board states where your opponent does immediately die. But I guess
The
I'll read the.
assembling combos thing is kind of whatever, because that's just like so many resources you have in play. The fact that this can give effective haste to some of your activated abilities is like a little bit better.
Yep. So I guess I'll read it real quick. 2 mana, Marvin Murderous Mimic, also terrifying art. Marvin Murderous Mimic has activated abilities of creatures you control that don't have the same name as this creature. So I think like most notably, if you play this on a developed board where you've like Soul Cauldroned a bunch of things, like it probably like does like 9,000 things in one turn. But I don't know.
Yeah, the problem is most of the powerful things you can do with this involve tapping, so like it needs to already be
Hmm.
in play, and then things
Sure.
happen.
Yeah. Well, what was the combo you were referring to? Like that people are excited about with Marvin?
Oh, I mean, it's just like the same as like, so if you have the fairy that you can untap in standard, and well, the Kami rotated, right? No, the Kami's in March of the Machine. It's not actually from like, that's the Soul Cauldron combo in standard, where
I
you
see.
have like a
Okay.
creature that untaps for 2 mana and the thing that says tap, add mana equal to this thing's power. You also just have
Well,
to give Marvin power, so that's like another step, and then you need something to win
huh,
with infinite mana.
I see. I think that Kami's actually in March of the Machine. Oh
Yeah,
no,
that's what I was saying.
okay, yeah,
It is legal in
yeah,
standard, but it's
yeah,
much better with Soul Cauldron because those cards just need to be in your graveyard and not
sure.
all in play. And then once they're both exiled to Soul Cauldron, as long as you have like another creature to exile to Soul Cauldron, like every
Hmm.
creature you play is threatening to win the game.
Yep, fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. I could see people playing it somewhere. Um, it is certainly a very unique effect, and it might break at some point. But we'll
Okay, so you
like,
say, yeah, sorry in chat. You say surely people alive today know that TV used to only be in black and white. That might be true, but I'm not sure. Like the understanding that there's a difference in cost, like that's not even apparent to me. That like it cost more money to get it in color. I wouldn't have guessed that, to be honest. I would have just guessed that one day like it was just all color. Like
yep. Um, anyways, let's talk about these lands real quick. There are two cycles of lands in the set, I think. One is the common one where they're tapped unless if a player has 13 or less
yeah, I mean
life.
those are cool for drafts. Like
Yeah.
I'll take those because I hated that Bloomburrow did not have a cycle of 2-color lands, and as boring as it is to probably design a cycle of 2-color lands for every single set ever, it makes the set so much better.
Yeah, but here they like have two cycles, although I think one of the cycles is incomplete in this set, but that's probably fine.
Yeah, these rare lands are probably quite good. I don't
Yeah.
know. They
It,
have very specific homes, but in the homes they're gonna end up in, I think they're really good. And the one that jumped out to me is the red-green one,
mhm,
because there is a red-green power stack in standard that's basically red splashing green,
mhm.
and this seems perfect. It plays all your one drops, and in standard, if you like, your deck is basically dual lands and basic mountains. So if you have another dual land, that means great, you can make green mana, and if you have all basic manas, that means great, you can make green mana. Like, it's just perfect.
Mhm.
And there'll be some awkward things where if you're playing like the Rockfall Village or whatever, or in Pioneer, if you're playing Den of the Bugbear, like sure, this could get in the way. But I think this, like for that red-green deck in standard, this is now the best land in the deck, I think.
Yep,
A pretty significant boost to its power level.
I agree with you. Oh, I didn't realize the Enchantment Land is a rare. That's so boring.
Yeah, I mean, if this card is good, it's, I guess, like, there's an enchanter. This could ETB draw a card
Yeah, yeah,
potentially
yeah.
in that deck. Like, that's pretty
Also,
powerful.
worth noting, the last time Delirium was in standard, Evolving Wilds was illegal. This time we have Terramorphic Expanse instead. So
Well, Evolving Wilds is also legal in standard.
wait, really?
And yeah, and Escape Tunnel, which is better than either of them. And Fabled Passage,
Yeah.
which is better than all of them by a lot.
What set is it in?
You gotta keep looking.
I I'm
It was probably in Wilds of Eldraine is my guess.
Oh, that is what it was in. Okay.
It also looked like it was in Brothers War.
Brothers War Commander, I think. Oh
Oh,
no,
okay.
maybe actual Brothers. I don't know.
And then
Anyways.
Escape Tunnel is from Murders, which just
Yep.
has another ability, which is completely irrelevant, but makes it better. And then Fabled Passage is actually good.
Yep, I've had those Fabled Passage since last time we were in Throne of Eldraine, and, good to have access to, I guess, in case. But yeah, I think that's most of the set. People ask me about some of the like nonsense. What is this? Metamorphic Fanatic. Have you seen this card? Metamorphosis.
Maybe.
This card.
Oh yeah, I would put that in cube. Absolutely.
Yeah, people are like, "Is this the next card that breaks Dimir in Legacy?" I'm like, probably not. I mean, obviously it's a good card.
It might see play in that
Yeah.
deck, but I'm not sure. It'd probably just be a one of. Like, I don't think it's a broken card. But
No.
In cube, the miracle mechanic is interesting because of like top of deck tutors, and this one is nice because it has two top on color like top of deck tutors that you're gonna have in your vintage cube anyways with Imperial Seal and Vampiric Tutor.
You can technically play Worldly Tutor in Legacy.
Yeah,
Or...
I've had my cube at some point have Triumph of St. Catherine, Zephyrim, and Worldly Tutor, but like those are like off color, it's
Sure.
like you're playing green-white. Like this is just like your deck could just have, like you could cycle your Troll, and then you could just at some point end of step Vampiric Tutor for this card, and Miracle it and have 10 power lifelink.
Scheming Symmetry has been brought up technically, but I don't
Yeah,
think
if you put Scheming Symmetry in your cube, I would put Opposition Agent in your cube to combo with it, because that's pretty fun.
That is pretty fun. I see. Yeah. Witch's Cottage technically works with this, although like having 3 swamps and then fetching for Witch's Cottage in Legacy is a big ask. Is what I would say.
Yeah. The other thing that's nice in cube is that spending 6 on this is not 6 is like achievable.
Yeah, that's like true for a cube, especially.
Not out of reach rate. Yeah, and then obviously in Legacy there's Brainstorm, and then in Cube there's Brainstorm too. But I like that in Cube it's like, yeah, if you just had like a Land Cycler and then one of the 2 top of deck tutors, that's like a 2-card combo that might solo the game.
Yep, that's
reasonable. Like Oliphant works too, or Ent.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess this is like pretty obvious if you've played with lifelink ever, but putting lifelink on a big creature is worth a lot. But it is weird that in that deck, like 2/3 of the creatures already have lifelink, or I guess a fair number.
Yeah.
The Gristlebrand and Trax have lifelink. The Archon and Troll do not, and I guess the Frog and Murktide don't as well.
Yeah, I mean, miracling it and getting the Frog back with lifelink is going to be good too.
Yeah, but why would you do that when you can just have Leyline Scion and give your Frog lifelink that way? Which is something I've done recently. Which I don't actually recommend because I did not think it was particularly good.
Oh, giving Bowmaster lifelink is funny, yeah. That comes up in the Leyline Scion thing too.
Yeah. Well, that's all the thoughts I have about this set. I guess I'll be drafting it a bunch soon.
Are you playing Vegas?
Yeah, the 100K thing. I think you're playing the modern stuff.
Modern.
Yeah.
I just want to Secret Lair Showdowns, so yeah. Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, the most impactful cards in the set are the lands, and if you're, because this set comes out the week before the Pioneer RC, right?
It does, and
yeah,
I think I want to buy some lands and put them in a deck, and we'll see if I can get them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they're, a red-green deck with red 1-drops. It's mostly just about, like, because then the blue-black one would be good with, like, cantrips if you were a blue-black deck. There's but it would be kind of bad with Thoughtseize, but they also get weirder in Pioneer. Well, they get weird if you play 3 colors, but they play really well with Shocklands. And, like, also, the Niv to Light deck or whatever, right? They play, like, Triomes and Shocklands, and then, like, the Glacial Fortress cycle of lands. These might be better than the Glacial Fortress.
They are. I've been or I guess someone said these are just upgraded check lands. I'm like, oh, that actually is the perfect way to think about it.
Yeah.
All right. Again, thanks, Jacob. I think I'm gonna call it here. We've been on for a lot. Appreciate you as always. I guess people can say hi to you in Vegas if they want to. You're not going to do anything else.
Playing Modern.
Yep.
and I'm working on what decks I should. I don't even know what decks I like in Modern. I guess I like the Emrakul deck. I'm just not sure it's good.
It's very. I was talking to someone about this, unrelated to the set review. Is that it seems like at some point it should be clear what kind of like Eldrazi Temple / Ukin's Lab deck you should play, but no one has done the work to actually figure out which one it is yet.
Yeah,
Although,
I mean, I don't like the other ones, and I like this one. And a big part of that is that this one has Utopia Sprawl, and I just feel like has more
mhm.
like early starts than sometimes just getting like. It also like I've turn 3 kicked Mycospawn people where they couldn't cast, what is it, Break the Ice on me until I cast the Mycospawn because I just like played some Utopia Sprawls on the first couple turns.
Yeah, Utopia Sprawl's pretty good, but not. Um, I guess you're relatively low on like actual Tron itself, then, right?
Yeah, I got to give it some tries, I guess. It's weird to me because the mana does not look that good, and once again, it just seems really vulnerable to like getting turn 2 Break the Ice like all the time, or you're setting up your opponent's Charmaz perfectly all the time.
Yep. Anyways, thanks again. Thanks everyone, and I don't know. I'll probably play some Pioneer soon, but
Yeah.